The Blast from Our Past Network.
Hey everybody, Corey here.
And it's me, Zach.
We wanted to tell you about our new show called The Coscarelli Factor.
You can find it on our Patreon at patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. The Coscarelli Factor covers every single film that Don Coscarelli has directed. And some other little bonus features in there too, like maybe the music videos he directed as well.
That's right. You can find all the episodes under the Auteur de Force tier on our Patreon page. Like Zach said, that's patreon.com/podcastingafterdark. And if you sign up today, you will get access to the complete Carpenter Factor series, where Zach and I went through every single movie that John Carpenter directed, from Dark Star all the way to, well, all the way till the end. So sign up today to our Patreon page and you can unlock all kinds of other things as well, like ad-free episodes and our monthly wrap-up After Dark show.
Patreon helps keep the lights on in the podcasting After Dark world. It gets pretty dark out there at night, and all your support keeps us from getting too scared.
And thank you to everyone who's signed up to our Patreon page. We really appreciate it. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side.
Lock your doors, close your windows, turn out your lights, for chills and thrills await you. It's time for Podcasting After Dark with your hosts, Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer. Stay with a friend, say your prayers as grisly ghouls close in to seal your doom. Tonight's episode, Bruiser, starring Jason Flemyng, Peter Stormare, and Leslie Hope.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Podcasting After Dark. I am one half of the pad team, Corey, a.k.a. Sleazy C. Joined with me, as always, is my brother from another mother, Zach the Total Snackage Schaefer. And we have another Cam Sully pick from the Jacked Up Review Show podcast. And this month, we are discussing George A. Romero's Bruiser that came out in 2000. This is going to be part of our, Zach and I were talking offline, part of our out-of-the-box horror movies, because we have another one that's a bit like a thriller this month. And our TV Obscura, as you all heard, was a bit more out-of-the-box horror, sort of unexpected horror. So that's what we're doing. That's what this month is. This year's October is out-of-the-box, unexpected horror. And this one is definitely a little bit horror, but I'd say mostly a thriller. But Zach, my man, how are you doing, buddy? We're back for a proper review. It's been over a month.
I know, it's tripping me out, and the fact that we're breaking down a cartoon like Mask is crazy to me. Mask, sorry, not Mask. The Cher Eric Stoltz movie Mask. No, wait, hold on. We're not doing that one. We are doing Darkman. No, wait. No, we're doing The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, I believe, with Ben Stiller. Yeah, no. Bruiser. Yeah, it is cool to break down a movie once again with you. It's been a while, as Stained would say. What a ridiculous name. And the fact that they got their number one song was an acoustic version of their heavy version, a lighter version of their heavy song.
They were considered nu metal, right?
I think they were. And that it's been a while, like that, I think that's like their mellowest song. It's kind of like when what was it? Sugar Ray came out and they were like a few, like kind of a punk rock band. And then suddenly they went totally cheese and I just want to fly. And like, oh wait.
Well, we're going on a tangent, but I guess the success of if a song kind of is different from your norm, but it becomes so big, I assume that influences your later writings, like your songwritings afterwards, because you're like, well, I guess we're this now, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a lot of bands out there, not a lot, but I think there's a few bands out there that are like that, where they totally changed their sound because, well, they were making more money doing the more commercial friendly stuff.
Well, then let me ask you this, and we're going to tie it back into the movie. The Misfits songs that you hear in this movie, are they representative of the Misfits in general? Because I've never listened to the Misfits before.
I haven't listened to a lot of the Misfits, but every song that I've heard sounds like this.
it's funny because it was a little bit more almost poppy rock than I ever thought the Misfits would be.
Yeah. I'm sure we have listeners that love the Misfits, so
Rob.
I'm going to abstain from my comments regarding the Misfits. I love their logos and their artwork and everything, and I always thought that was I always thought that was super cool. And I think one of the dudes was a WCW wrestler for a minute, or Vampiro in WCW, like came down with the Misfits at one point. I don't know.
Okay,
I could be wrong, but I feel like that is fairly accurate. I've never been a huge Misfits fan, and everything that I've heard is kind of like, oh yeah, it sounds like this.
Okay, interesting. Now, see, that's the thing. Like, I actually didn't hate it. I kind of lean a little bit poppy sometimes, so I was like, oh, I was just shocked because I thought they were going to be heavier.
Yeah. I figured with a look like that, you'd think they'd be like a thrash metal band, but they're not.
Yeah. But getting back to the movie itself, I'll just start out and saying I've never seen it before. I've always been aware of it because of Jason Flemyng, obviously the Lock, Stock, and, Two Smoking Barrels and everything. And we'll get into some of his other filmography, but like I've always been aware of it. But the weird thing is every time I'd heard of the movie, I thought it was like a hooligan movie. I thought he was like a soccer hooligan type of thing. I'd never seen the trailer for it. So, and I kind of didn't even know it was a George A. Romero film either. But yeah, what's your history with Bruiser?
I mean, if it was directed by Guy Ritchie and it was a British movie, then I think Bruiser would be more appropriate. But I actually saw Bruiser when it came out. I saw it at Fangoria, at a Fangoria convention back in 2000 when it came out. I feel like, again, it's kind of hazy, but I feel like George Romero was at that convention talking about Bruiser when it came out and did a panel with Tony Timpone talking about it. So that's where I saw Bruiser. I liked it then. I still like it now. I think it has potential. Why there was never a sequel is beyond me, because I think there should have been. But it's definitely like when I watched it this time around, I had seen The Secret Life of Walter Mitty many times, but I just watched it within the past couple of months. I was like, whoa, the beginning of this is totally Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Joe Schmo gets stepped on by everyone in his life and envisions taking revenge on people, and then finally, overcomes that.
Okay. All right, I've never seen that one. Who'd you say that was in that one?
Ben Stiller wrote it and directed it. It's based on an old 50s or 60s black and white movie, but it's great, man. Secret Life of Walter Mitty. If anyone wants an uplifting, get you motivated, if anyone's in a rut and feels like they're stuck with what they're doing, go watch Secret Life of Walter Mitty, and it may change your life. I'm being 100% sincere about that. It's a great film.
Okay.
Unlike Bruiser, which don't do what he does in Bruiser. Just don't do that.
No, seriously. Now, you mentioned that you saw this at a Fangoria convention. Would you even consider this horror?
No. But it's directed by George Romero, who many love and think as a master of horror. He also does like off-kilter films. I wouldn't call Season of the Witch a horror film. I wouldn't call The Crazies a horror film. I wouldn't call... I know Martin is considered like a vampire movie, but is it really a vampire movie? Like it's a hybrid, right?
And is the dark half? I mean, it's
the
got
dark
some
half
horror,
psychological horror.
Yeah, with like obviously supernatural elements. This one has supernatural elements in it as well. Supernatural. But yeah, I consider this more of a neo-noir thriller with slight supernatural elements to it. The script is interesting because, he uses the term dame a lot and everything. And I think it kind of clicked with me at the end of the movie when, seeing Jason Flemyng's Henry's, his character Henry in that top hat and the cape and everything. And, he's like, careful, you might hit the dame. And I'm like, oh, he's trying to make a noir film now. Like he's trying to make a noir film in 2000. The acting, like once that clicked for me and on a rewatch, like everything, all the weird acting and the voiceovers and by weird acting I mean sort of like more of the dialogue, it felt like it was supposed to be like in the 40s or the 30s,
You could say weird acting. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, a little bit is kind of odd.
Yeah.
But what I love about the movie is how very unique it is. Now, I know you did call out a couple other, things, but I think that overall, the stew that George A. Romero created here, and he wrote it too, is a very unique film. Halfway through the movie, I couldn't figure out if people could see Jason Flemyng's, face mask or not. Like, was it just in his head? And I like all that kind of stuff. And in the end, I'm left with a movie that, like, I'm not like fully in love with, but I'm in love with the fact that it exists. And I'm so happy that it does. And I'm so happy that it fills this very unique place. I very few movies feel like Bruiser.
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember seeing this in at the time. I got confused, and I thought that this came out the same time that Stuart Gordon's Empire of the Ants came out. That was one of the last feature, not one of the last features, but a movie he was fairly mainstream that he did. And really good, by the way, if you're interested in Empire of the Ants, and also like an off-kilter, not horror per se, but more psychological, more thriller-based. Like this is more of a drama on the descent of someone who's losing their mind, right? But I would say across the board, I feel like Tom Atkins, if anything, Tom Atkins loved to say Dame. I feel like he kind of had that same 50s noir detective in Night of the Creeps as well.
Yeah.
And I think Tom Atkins might have been at the Bruiser panel as well when this came out in 2000.
Yeah, Tom Atkins, I think, really fits as Detective McCleary in this. Like, for example, like when the dialogue comes out of his mouth, I'm like, that works. But like his detective, who I just called Detective Who Gives a Fuck, his partner, like he doesn't quite seem to fit. To borrow what the kids, say, I feel like Tom Atkins understood the assignment. Like, he understood what kind of movie this was, and I think he played it, sort of appropriately. Now, Peter Stormare, he's just a force of nature, and honestly, it's just so much fun to watch. But I think Tom Atkins fits this movie to a T, and you could honestly, I'm surprised that they didn't release a black and white version of this film, like as a bonus, on the 4K, because I think it would have worked as a black and white film.
Huh. Yeah. That I could see that. I could totally see that being an interesting twist on it. As the kids say, that detective is below mid, or he's mid, I guess. I don't know. And that's no capping on God right there.
Bet. I don't know. I don't know half the stuff we're saying right now.
Neither do I, but you definitely have Riz, and so do I.
There you go.
So I'm kind of torn on the black and white thing, because black and white to me looks, now, because it's so crisp and clean, I wish when they do black and white movies, I wish they would make it grainy, because when they do it just straight up black and white, like they did with The Mist, it looks like what happens when you try to copy a Touchstone tape back in the 80s or 90s. You try to dub it onto another tape because there's some sort of coating in there that messes up the coloring, so it comes out black and white. It looks literally like that, like we're watching a bootleg version. So I wish they would grain it up a little bit. Sin City was the same way. Like, Sin City would have looked so much better if they just put like a filter on it, like they did with the Grindhouse movies, Planet Terror and
right.
and Death Proof. Like, make it look more of its time. Devil's Rejects, I feel like they did a little bit of that as well. So I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. I would love to see a black and white version. You probably could if you
just turn your TV to black and white, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's all. It looks like someone just pushed the filter button on your phone.
I'm glad you brought up The Mist. I love that movie, and I bought the DVD that had both versions. I watched both versions, and yeah, I was like, oh, it just looks like someone took the color away. And like, I'm with you. It's like, if you're going to do it right. And we kind of discuss all the time about how it's all the little things like that people miss about, like, say, making a movie back in the 80s. They miss the fact that, like, everyone had yellow teeth. But nowadays everyone has fucking like bright white choppers. And then like, guys had unibrows because guys didn't groom their forehead, anything above their beard. So they had like nose hairs and unibrows. But now everybody, all even just like character actors, wear masks at night, to make their skin perfect and everything. So it's just, you miss some of these little weird things. And just kind of button up this conversation. This was that's kind of the reason why I never picked up that Mad Max Fury Road Blood and Chrome release. Cause I was just like, I just assume they just did the same thing, which was like, we're going to take out all the colors and kind of, mess with the contrast, and that's it.
Yeah, I don't feel like it doesn't do it for me. It doesn't do it for me, guys. Doesn't do it for me.
But let's get into George Romero, because this is sort of the first time we've talked about him, or one of his movies on the show. We've honestly talked about him before, but this is the first time we've discussed sort of one of his movies, so we can actually talk about sort of how this falls into his filmography and everything. And I'm sure one day we'll get to him on A Tour de Force eventually, because he is one of the horror auteurs, one of the legends. But this movie was done about 4 years after the Dark Half, or Dark Half, right?
Yeah, Dark Half.
Yeah, and it's his only movie he didn't film in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, because this is in Canada, right?
Yeah, it's filmed in Toronto. At first I was like, oh, okay, so this is like Toronto or something. Obviously you could tell it's Canada. And then some point Rosemary says in the movie, like, she's American. I'm like, oh, this is supposed to be America. Okay.
I think it's supposed to be New York, but
yeah,
Two Evil Eyes. Did you ever see that? That was the one with Dario Argento and George Romero.
Yes.
I think they probably filmed that in Canada.
Okay. Well, but did he direct that fully, or was it like him co-directing it with Dario?
Well, it was two tales, right? So
that's right. That's right.
So look, George Romero, this may anger some of our audience, but when you look across the board at his films, like rating wise, I don't always buy into people's ratings, but he tends to get like a 7 or a 6 on his movies, I'd say that's kind of where he lies. It's above the mid, but never into the 10s. Like, does he make great movies that I've watched over and over and over again? Yeah. Are they perfect? No. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you put Carpenter's 80s versus Romero's 70s and early 80s movies together, I would go for Carpenter anytime, just over that. But look, without George Romero, we wouldn't have the zombie. We wouldn't even probably be talking about zombies the same way we are now. So he's a legend. He's an icon, and he did so many cool, he did 3 Stephen King projects: Creepshow, Dark Half,
Monkey
and Monkey Shines.
Yeah,
and that's pretty cool. I love the collaborations. Two Evil Eyes, I enjoy that. I love the work he does. It's just, oftentimes I'm like, yeah, it's good, but it kind of sits right there.
What would you say is your favorite overall George Romero film, or maybe like top 2?
I'd say because I saw Dawn of the Dead with Diallo a couple of years ago at the Aero Theater with Ken Foray in the audience, or he came up and did a Q&A at the end. I'd say Dawn of the Dead is my favorite of Romero, and then Day of the Dead is my favorite of Romero, and they kind of sit side by side. I can't pick. I might pick Day of the Dead over Dawn. I feel like it's a smarter, faster paced movie, but Dawn is just like, Dawn is the one you can go to sleep at night and continue the story in your mind of like, where is this going?
Yeah. Whereas Day is so bleak. My personal favorite is Day, just because of its bleakness. I also have a very soft spot for Land of the Dead, because it's kind of like Mad Max meets zombies. I love it. I love the giant truck, the Dead Reckoning. I think that's fucking cool.
Land of the Dead is, to me, like, when you look at these auteurs later on in life, Land of the Dead is far superior to Ghost of Mars.
Right. Yes, I will agree with you 100% on that. And I think I just want to put it out there, and you and I have had this discussion before, but we also get heat for it online. Guys and gals, I don't dislike Dawn of the Dead, the original. I grew up watching the hell out of it. I love it. I don't understand why I can't find a 4K or a Blu-ray of it, because I think some small company put it out. I don't remember who it was, but I don't have a copy of it, which is really weird. But I grew up loving the hell out of it. I bought the Anchor Bay. I bought it so many times, and I adore that film. But right now, if I had to sit down and watch a movie, which one would it be? I would watch the remake right now, because I think that movie is so much fun, and it's a bit more modernized. And then I kind of look back and I'm like, I will take the Night of the Living Dead remake over the original, and I will also take the Crazies remake over the original. But again, that's not to say that I don't enjoy the original Night of the Living Dead, and I didn't enjoy the original Crazies. I did. I like them both. If I'm going to sit down right now, I would choose the remakes of those three.
Yeah, I would say Night of the Living Dead, the 60s version, the original is great for Halloween night.
Yes, perfect. It's
Halloween
a perfect
Eve.
Halloween movie. Yeah.
Just put it out, or it could be on the background though, it's a great background movie because of all the visuals. I agree with you about Crazies and Dawn of the Dead. We've talked about this before. I will say too, though, that I was very curious about that movie called The Amusement Park that came out a couple of years ago. It's from 1975. It was like a lost Romero film about a guy who descends into madness at an amusement park. An old guy who looks a lot like Albert Einstein and Mark Twain if they had a baby. But at least from the poster and the stills I saw, I haven't seen it yet. I'm very curious to see it because anything that looks that aged and different. Look, there's a movie I've shouted out many times called The Deranged, and I would love to do that movie down the road. It's not the best film, but man, it's got that eeriness about it. It's kind of similar to what we talked about with Diallo on TV Obscura in regards to his Hansel and Gretel short from the Appalachian Mountains. Like things from the 70s just had a really cool look to them that they don't now. You can't recreate that now unless you're using Super 8 film cameras,
Yeah.
Anyways, that being said, George Romero is, a force to be reckoned with when it comes to his work, and God bless the guy for doing projects his way. And I did it my way. He really did. And I'm happy about that. Even his big budget, like studio films, have a different look to them. And he wrote and directed this.
Yeah. No, I mean, he is a true auteur. Most of his films are independently, done. This one had a little bit of a studio backing to it and everything. And then I watched on the Blu-ray, or the 4K actually I picked up. I watched, Jason Flemyng was talking about, being directed by George A. Romero, and it seems like he was just the nicest, most like positive guy. Like he was always like, oh my God, that was so great. Do this again. But he was always positive and always upbeat. And I think the thing to take away, Jason Flemyng was saying, was that he loved movies and he loved the art of making them. And, I don't think this movie is perfect, but I can see the love that was put into it.
Yeah, agreed. A few other like behind the scenes things. The composer is Donald Rubinstein. And I was just curious about his background. He composed Knight Riders and Martin, both Romero films, back in the day. So that's pretty cool that he came back to work with George Romero, 30 some odd years later, 20 or 30 years later.
Can I just say, I've seen almost every Romero film. The one that's kind of missing from my filmography is Knight Riders. I've actually never seen that movie.
I think that falls into a similar category as this. It's different. It's got a great cast, and
Patricia Tallman's in it.
Yeah, it's worth checking out. I think you should watch it. I wouldn't put it high up on your list, but definitely put it in your list.
Put it in somewhere. You want to get into the cast?
Yeah, I do. Jason Flemyng, who you already mentioned, that dude is so good, and I don't know if he's retired now, or I think he actually is still working. He is. He's in a movie called Touchdown that just came out. It's only 80 minutes long, by the way. And,
nice, perfect.
Yeah, so it looks like it's a sci-fi action movie. I kind of want to see that now. Yeah, he's still working to this day, but man, in the 2000s, late 90s, 2000s, he was everywhere. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, I think, for me, was really what put him on the map for me.
Yeah, of course.
And then The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, he was good in that, in an otherwise kind of awful film.
Yeah. I mean, I read the comics, and that movie's terrible, but I think he stands out as one of the better aspects of that movie as Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And he does play Mr. Hyde in this giant prosthetic suit, and it's fantastic. Now, of course, we saw him. He's a Podcast After Dark alumni because we saw him in Deep Rising.
Right.
But, he kind of plays like a sniveling guy in that. And I think at this point, everyone probably just still remembers him as Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels.
Yeah. Same to be said with Peter Stormare, who
love that dude so
amazing.
much.
Yeah, he's good in everything. But I think everybody has like a favorite Peter Stormare movie, whether it's Fargo or Constantine, where he plays the devil. Probably the best thing about Constantine.
Well, first off, I didn't hate that movie.
Satan.
I actually kind of enjoyed him, enjoyed that movie. But his portrayal of Satan, Lucifer, is fantastic in that. I think for me, what I probably first sort of noticed him in. I mean, I watched Fargo, but I think what sort of stood out for me was Armageddon. He played that sort of that astronaut, in it, the Russian astronaut. He's fun in everything that he does.
He is. He actually did an episode of Adventure Time, which is hilarious, where he's this like total badass knight, and then he has this running gag through the episode where Finn puts on tries to look cool like the knight, and he goes, "That's not very," and he like does this kind of like okay symbol, and it always goes. It's hilarious. But then at the end, he gets like a paper cut or something like that, and he just freaks out about it. So it's really funny. Yeah, Peter Stormare is amazing. I love that dude. And you don't see him as much as you used to. You used to see him all the time in the early 2000s, but not so much now.
Yeah. No, he's awesome. He's amazing. And playing the role of Peter Stormare tonight will be Zach.
Oh, I'll do my best. Leslie Hope. And she's been around for quite some time. She, I think most notably recently, has been in the Lost in Space TV series, which I guess is canceled because they haven't had one come out since 2021.
Yeah. I saw the first season. I enjoyed it. I don't really remember, where she was or whatever. But yeah, I saw that too. And I was like, okay. And then she was like in Crimson Peak and she's done a lot of, TV shows like Blue Bloods and stuff like that. But honestly, like I didn't like recognize her like off the bat. But I mean, she's been in 110 things. So she's working.
Yeah, she's been around for a really long time and has done a lot of projects. I think, unfortunately, she falls into that category of like Nancy Travis and who's the one from Kindergarten Cop, who's in the new Reagan movie, actually. She plays Nancy Reagan. Penelope Ann Miller. Kind of that like strawberry blondish / brunette. They all look the same. They've all got curly hair. When they grow it out kind of thing. Yeah. You're like, oh, you look just like that. It's kind of like, generic. I don't want to call her generic.
Generic brunette girl,
Yeah, she kind of looks like a generic brunette girl.
Yeah, no, I'm with you, buddy. I got to call out. She was on an episode of RoboCop, the Prime Directive series, which I think that was a Canadian production in 2001.
Oh, yeah. I think I watched that.
I think I might have caught an episode or two of that.
Like, I mean, hey, all you Leslie Hope fans out there, if you think she's rad, that's awesome. But she's not someone I changed the channel for.
She is on that new show, that Snowpiercer TV show, which I've heard great things about, but I never saw it. So.
Oh, okay, cool. You remember that song by Bruce Springsteen, 57 channels and there's nothing on? And now we have countless billion and there still people are like, but there's nothing on, or I can't find the thing I want to watch.
Pretty much. And some things never change.
There's a lot of other actors to point out if we wanted to, but I'm just going to stick with one more, and that's the legend Tom Atkins, who plays Detective McCleary. Tom Atkins, he's the man, the myth. We know him, we love him.
Yeah,
we want him to be our pop.
And he still does conventions and everything. And I see people like on our Instagram feed always taking pictures with him. And in Tom Atkins, in every single picture I've seen of him, has the biggest, warmest smile on his face, and that just makes me so happy. But yeah, Zach and I covered Halloween 3, so we talked a lot about Tom Atkins in that, and there are some other actors that we're going to call out as they pop up, a couple of them favorites of ours, and we'll kind of mention them as they pop up. But the rest of the cast is kind of like a who's who of character actors, and everyone does a solid job in it.
Yeah, except for that detective.
Yeah, detective who gives a fuck.
I will just share once again my Tom Atkins story because I love this story. I went to Universal Studios with my brother when I was like a teenager, so in the 90s, when they had the Miami Vice experience, which is now Waterworld. But we were going through what used to be, what is now, I believe, the underground subway system of San Francisco, where there's an earthquake and all this destruction. I believe that used to be it was the tunnel from $6 Million Man when he meets the abominable snowman or the Bigfoot or whatever.
Yeah.
Anyways, one of those. We're about to go through this tunnel, and Tom Atkins is like on the right not near it, on the street or on the grass, and he's like, "Don't go in there! Don't do it! Don't do it! For the love of God, where are you going? Don't do it!" And I'm like, Eric and I look over and we go, "That's Tom Atkins! What the heck? This is awesome!" He just happened to be there, probably on set doing something.
Yeah, just doing something. Yeah,
yeah. Because I've talked to a few people that have worked on the Universal lot, and they'll be like, "Yeah, we'll be having lunch and we'll see the tour bus go by, and sometimes we'll wave, and people will be like, 'Who's that?' Oh, it's a gaffer." So it's like it's kind of cool. But yeah, that's my Tom Atkins story, and I shared that with him when I met him at one of the Fangoria conventions. He's like, "Yeah, I would go to Universal all the time for things. I love doing that." I'm like, cool.
That's awesome. I mean, he just seems like a cool dude, and I'm so happy that he seems to be very fan friendly, which is really nice.
Right, for sure. Well, hey, if someone's paying you $35 per autograph,
right,
or more,
why not? So,
to sign your name across my heart. Yeah.
All right. Well, buddy, are we ready to get Faceless? Why wasn't this movie called Faceless, by the way? Was that it? Do you think it was because there was another movie called Faceless?
Yeah, there was another movie called Faceless.
Okay.
I mean, it is. Yeah, if you think about it, like the name is the name of the magazine he works for. Doesn't really... Okay.
But they refer to him as Faceless in like the news articles and on the news and stuff. You would think that the movie would be called Faceless.
We'll call it Whiteface.
Wow. And we're canceled. Actually, we're going to be canceled in a little while into the breakdown, but we'll get to that.
You will be. I won't be.
All right, buddy. Let's roll the trailer.
Did you hear me, asshole? I said don't wait up.
Well, it's because I admire him I can be honest enough to tell him your taste is in your ass.
I tell you, Henry, if I could fuck a car, I'd never leave my garage.
Mila, was that you?
Before we get into the breakdown, I just have to say, first of all, Cam, Sully, thank you once again. Y'all should check out his podcast. It's the Jacked Up Review Show podcast. You can find him on Instagram, blah, 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 blah. And we are breaking this movie down for Cam because Cam is a Patreon member at the highest tier. He's a producer of the show. If you go to our Patreon, patreon.com/podcastingafterdark, and you sign up for the highest tier on Patreon, you can be a producer of the show too, just like Cam, Paulette, Crystal, Rob, Aaron. The list goes on and on. We've broken down their movies. They loved it. It made them feel so good inside, so much joy, and you get to be a part of the show and immortalized forever. So go to patreon.com/podcastingafterdark and join today. Back to the scheduled programming.
Perfect.
Or something like that.
The movie opens with the beautiful Studio Canal logo. The Bruiser logo appears in red, then slowly deteriorates to black. We see a radio alarm go off at 7:30 a.m., and we hear a talk show host talking to a caller that wants to kill himself. Henry, Jason Flemyng's character, switches the radio to his headphones so he can listen to the drama unfold while doing his morning routine of push-ups, then taking a shower and shaving. He switches to like a portable radio in the shower, so he's not electrocuting himself when he's in there.
That's good.
It would have been a really quick movie.
And movie's over. Thanks, Cam.
It's done. Thanks, Cam. You rule. The caller talks about how his dad just passed away and left him his house, but the caller has lost the house to the bank because of unpaid taxes. This sends the caller spiraling about how the house was all his dad had after a lifetime of working his ass off. As Henry is finished shaving in the bathroom mirror, he holds a gun to his head and blows his brains out all over the shower curtain. Yes, Henry does. But we quickly find out that this is just an intrusive thought, and Henry is still looking in the bathroom mirror. He looks startled, though.
Yeah, this is the Secret Life of Walter Mitty stuff.
Okay. So does Walter Mitty kill himself in it, or is it more of him killing other people?
I'm just saying where he goes into his own head and fantasizes, whether it be positive or negative.
Okay, interesting. And then, yeah, they make it very obvious. I mean, they don't make it obvious at first in this movie. George Romero doesn't, that you're in the fantasy, but then he makes it obvious when you sort of come out of the fantasy.
Thank God he doesn't do those bright flash cuts like John Carpenter was doing.
Yeah, and that was around the same time, you know, like early mid-2000s when that flash cutting thing was happening, and we both hated that. Go back and listen to the Carpenter Factor on Patreon.
Yeah, go sign up to our Patreon. Patreon.com/podcastingafterdark and sign up today.
The radio host keeps talking. The caller cuts him off and says, "You shovel shit all your life and don't even leave a mark? It's like you shouldn't even bother. It's like you've never even been here at all." The radio host seems to be sort of sympathetic and says, "No, man, because he's talking about the guy's dad. He's like, no, man, he left his mark. He left you, and I don't think your old man's going to appreciate you kicking off." The host is cut off by a gunshot. The caller killed himself. Now, Zach, we always talk about how the thesis of a film is usually in the first act somewhere, sort of hidden. This right here, this dialogue with the talk show host and the suicide person who commits suicide, this is the thesis, the whole discussion about how like leaving your mark and how, spending your entire life being sort of shoveling shit and not achieving your potential, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's relatable for a lot of people. Don't go kill yourself, anybody.
No, don't at all. And I also think intrusive thoughts can be relatable to people as well.
Yeah, I think we all deal with that on a semi-regular basis.
Yeah, half the fucking mental battle in life is fighting the intrusive thoughts.
Right. Don't eat that Twinkie. Don't eat that Twinkie. Don't eat. Oh, but it's so good. Put it in my mouth. No, I don't.
If it was the camera on Zach's forehead, it'd be like, "Don't eat those juicy ropes. Don't eat those juicy ropes." But then the camera would pan down to his mouth, and the juicy ropes hanging out of his mouth.
Yeah, there's a show. I can't spoil it. Anyways, Ben's freaking Ant-Man, what's his name? Paul Rudd is in the Only Murders in the Building or whatever.
Oh,
on Hulu.
yeah.
He's in the third season of that. Something happens in regards to sweets that I was like, that's kind of relatable. Like, can't do that to my body. I got to do that to my body.
Oh man, your juicy ropes.
You know I love them. They make organic red vine.
Listening. And if this is your first time listening to the show, you know what? I'm not going to tell you what I'm talking about. So you can just assume whatever you want when I say Zak's juicy ropes.
They make organic ones now, which are delicious.
Oh God.
Made out of beet juice, which I'm not going to explain that either.
Nope. My God. I love it. That was perfect. Henry looks shaken by this and turns off the radio. He puts on his shirt and leans down next to his wife, Janine, who's still asleep in bed. He leans down to kiss her leg, and their little yapper dog kind of growls and barks at him. Janine, she's smoking hot, but she is a raging see you next Tuesday.
Remember that Wings Hauser movie where it's like, see you next Tuesday? Yes. Like, wait, what? What? Who says that in a movie? Amazing.
I think that was L.A. Bounty, wasn't it? I think.
No, that was the Maximum
Magnum Force. No, not Magnum Force.
The Force movie.
Deadly Force.
Deadly Force.
Deadly Force. Jesus, Wings.
Wings. Damn it.
Damn it, Wings. Damn it, Janet.
I blame Wangs. Wangs.
Wangs.
And those juicy ropes.
Janine wakes up and tells Henry to shut the drapes so she can sleep. He tells her he'll be home at the regular time, but she reminds him they have a barbecue to go to at his boss's house later. As Henry's leaving the bedroom, he starts telling his wife about the guy that killed himself on the radio. Janine says it takes all kinds, then shoots up and says now she's wide awake. Henry walks into the living room. Right? She's such a... Anyways, I mean,
this is just relatable. Like, not to me.
No, it's relatable. Not to me, though. Femme French, not to me. If you're listening down there, not to me. I love my wife and my juicy ropes.
And my organic ones that have beet juice in them.
Jesus Christ.
Cam's going off the road.
Henry walks into the living room of his huge house, and we see that it's all still under construction. He sits down to eat cereal at his table saw, and the dog steps on the red button on the ground, starting the saw right in Henry's face. We hear Janine say from the other room, she learned how to do that. Henry walks over to the button and turns it off with his foot, then asks Janine to call the dog back to the bedroom. His wife just lays there in bed smoking a cigarette, clearly ignoring him, because, like, you can hear him yelling as she's just laying there fucking ignoring him.
She's a terrible person.
Yes.
Does she get what she deserves? Meh.
Yeah, maybe. Anyways, we'll get to it. Because did even Peter Stormare's character get what he deserves? I don't think anyone really does, but I get the point of the movie, though. I get what it's trying to say, though.
Yeah, I agree.
Henry leaves his massive house and starts walking down the suburban street. I wish they would address why he was walking, because he does have a car, the Volvo, but he's walking here. I would just like for him to say, like, I want to get some exercise or something,
Yeah. That would have been nice. A little more exposition.
Because I feel like it kind of like the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, he spent so much money on his house, he can't afford a car. That's what I sort of thought the movie was sort of telling me.
Right, but that's not the case.
Right. On the way, he's picked up by his friend Jimmy, who just happens to be driving a new Mercedes. As they drive to the train station, Jimmy, a.k.a. Jimbo, shows Henry what his new car can do and floors it. This scares Henry, and he tells him to slow down. And of course, this is all character building for Henry to kind of show that he's spineless and everything,
Right.
At the train station, Henry talks to Jimmy about his investments. The two are old friends, and Jimbo is managing his portfolio. Unfortunately, Henry's stocks took some hits lately, and he didn't quite clear as much as he was anticipating. Henry is disappointed and says, I expected there to be more. I always expect there to be more. Jimbo gets defensive and says, you act like I shortchanged you. Henry says, no, it's not Jimmy's fault. He knows that.
Or does he?
Look, Jimbo, I'm house poor. I don't even own the house yet, I'm stretching it at work to afford it. Jimmy asks if he got the report at the end of the month, but Henry says that Janine handles all the finances. The train pulls up, and that ends their conversation. Jimmy reminds Henry they're going to meet for tennis at 12:30 at the club and gets on the train. Henry leans down to pick up his briefcase, but is pushed aside by a lady forcing her way through the line. Henry gets angry and grabs the lady by the arm. They both fall to the ground and roll close to the tracks as the train starts. Henry punches the lady in the face, knocking her out and leaving her head on the train tracks. A man comes to break them up, and Henry punches him too. As the train starts moving, it crushes the lady's head on the tracks. This is another intrusive thought, and we are brought back to Henry just standing by the train looking down. He jumps up on board, and it starts moving. So what are your thoughts on like this whole scene? I know George Romero is trying to add some horror to it, because if we kind of don't get this, we're not going to get any action for like another 20-30 minutes. Although I had a hard time sort of buying, like they were clearly force rolling, like we have to get to this mark, but there's not enough hill to sort of roll momentum. So we kind of like have to get another sort of momentum going. But ultimately I thought it was okay, but I didn't love it. What was your thoughts on it?
Yeah, this is a perfect example of what I'm talking about with George Romero, where his stuff is just like not polished. It feels like a little like he did one take and he's like, that's good. Let's go to the next one. I don't know if that's the case or not, but it feels like, could we do that again with a little more finesse? I do like the scene though, because it's so intense and so jarring. And I remember when I originally saw it, I was like, oh yeah, now we're getting to the good stuff. But then we got to wait another 20 or 30 minutes until we get some more.
Yeah, no, my take, yeah, like it said, it's like, I feel like on paper, what it was supposed to be. Like they roll down the hill, she lands right, you know what I mean? But then the location that they found, the hill kind of really wasn't steep enough, type of thing.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I don't know. Again, that's just Romero's style. I feel like if you look at things, it's always like something just a little bit off.
I would say that's kind of the whole Crazies, the movie The Crazies, like great concept, awesome visual of like the person with the whole biosuit on.
Right.
And that's what, that's why I bought the clamshell, Anchor Bay clamshell of it. And then I watch it and I'm like, I understand what you're saying. Like I totally get it. Even when I was younger, like I totally got it. But at the same time, I was just like, it just wasn't quite executed.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's fair. I think it's fair. I'm sure a lot of our audience would be like, no. Now, in our defense, I have heard from multiple other people that the remake of The Crazies, they like it better than the original. Yeah, and they're not wrong. But the people that like the original Crazies, God bless you.
God bless you.
Just go for it.
Henry walks into the lobby where he works. It's Bruiser magazine, which is clearly a play on Maxim. Zach, we probably may have talked about this at the beginning, but we'll talk about it now. Dude, this movie feels very much 2000, like very much of the time with this whole Bruiser magazine. I was a big fan of Maxim back in the day. I freaking loved that magazine. It was everywhere. And then it just kind of fizzled and faded away. It was of the moment, you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Were you ever a Maxim reader?
Oh yeah, totally. And then I was embarrassed to buy it because it you slap the magazine down on the counter and you're like, I read it for the articles, which I did.
They had, dude, early Maxim stuff was fucking hilarious. Like it wasn't quite like Cracked, like when Cracked like redid their website and went like their online presence like around 2005 or something, and they were fantastic and their articles were so sharp and funny. I feel like maybe some of the Maxim people went to Cracked or something, but early Maxim articles were fucking good.
I thought so too, and there were great tips for men. It was like Men's Journal mixed with softcore Playboy, basically, is what it was. And I think that was the thing where I'm like, no, I'm not buying this sort of buying it for the cover, but I'm not really. What do I do? What do I do?
A little bit of column B.
And Demi Moore comes out in Vanity Fair, and you're like, oh, I'm buying Vanity Fair because it's Vanity Fair. And you're like, no, you're not. You're buying it because Demi Moore, never mind.
Oh, the paint, when she painted the suit cover or whatever. Remember that one?
But she was like pregnant on the cover.
Oh, that's right. That was that one. Yeah. Still hot. Anyways, not that I have a pregnant fetish. I don't actually, but okay. Maybe I do. Let's discuss. No, I'm just kidding. Zach is covering his eyes. Zach is actually red.
I'm red as my juicy ropes. Bruiser, yeah. The name is kind of weird. It alludes to like hurting somebody. I don't know if that's intentional or not.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I don't feel like that this would be the appropriate magazine or name for a Maxim style magazine.
Let's call it Welted. Wait, what?
Yeah, no, I know. I'm with you 100%. But it's what they're going for, and I get it. I totally understand.
Yeah, no, yeah. I'm sure someone's going to chime in and be like, actually, no, it's a metaphor for what aggressive men do. And really, sure.
It's actually referring to what you do to your dingus after you've read the magazine.
Read it with your eyes. Wait, yeah, that's what you do. Never mind.
With your hands. What is this, Braille? We're off the rails, guys. Okay.
Masked Crusader!
Fighting crime all the time.
Peter Stormare's gonna get it. You know he is.
Oh, man. So Henry asks Rita at the front desk if she listened to the talk show this morning on the radio.
He asked Rita where the records room is. No, who's Rita? I'm Rita's boss. Who's Rita? My secretary.
My secretary. Oh, it's so good.
Never mind.
I love Fletch.
Ask for the where the address for Jim Swarthout.
She says no, but she heard some asshole blew his brains out. And she also says it takes all kinds. We also see that like he has to ask her like 3 or 4 times before she responds to him, and that just it hammers home the fact that he's invisible to people.
Yeah,
which I've never sort of maybe my personality's too big, but I've never sort of had people not pay attention to me before.
I think that might be a 2000 cliche too. I think of what's his face in Office Space with the stapler,
Yes.
My stapler is, and they took it or whatever. Like that's maybe a cliche of the tech era of like people just kind of, the loudmouth is the one who gets the job done and gets heard.
Yeah. And the boss is the loudmouth. Yeah. No, you're right. And again, that's what kind of makes this movie, it feels very 2000 to me, this movie.
Yeah.
Henry rushes into the boardroom and tries to ask 2 female coworkers if they heard the show in the morning, but he's ignored by them as well. This is all, again, just hammering it home. Henry greets Tom, who seems to be one of his few friends in the office. Zach, do you know the guy who plays Tom? Do you know anything that he's been from?
Well, his name is Jeff Monahan, and he has a few cool projects under his belt, but he's known for the movie Lone Star. And if you've never seen Lone Star, I highly recommend that one. It's written and directed by John Sayles, who did like 8 Men Out, Mate One, Brother from Another Planet, et cetera, City of Hope. But Lone Star is a great like Western noir with Chris Cooper, Elizabeth Pena, and of course Matthew McConaughey, and the late great Chris Christopherson.
Ooh, oh man, yeah, I love Lone Star, man. I watched that as a kid. I thought that movie was awesome. I can never get enough of Chris Cooper. I fucking love that dude.
And I'll also mention Joe Morton's in it. I think sci-fi fans will know him from Terminator 2 with the creator of the robots.
RoboCop, what? Oh, yeah, Terminator 2. I thought I was thinking RoboCop. Terminator 2, yeah, Miles Dyson, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. No, he's always great as well.
Yeah. You would like Lone Star. Lone Star is a very
I love Lone Star. That's all as a kid. I fucking love that movie.
Oh, yeah, cool.
Yeah, cool. Thanks for listening to me. I just said that 2 seconds ago.
Sorry, I was fixed on mentioning Joe Morton. Where the hell's the records room?
Henry then spots Rosemary, Leslie Hope, who we mentioned, and asks what she's doing at the meeting. She says Milo asked her to help him pick the face for the September cover. Now, Zach, we do have to call out because IMDb, Peter Stormare's character named Milo Stiles in the movie, he's billed as Miles Stiles on IMDb. So I'm wondering, like, was that his original name in the script? And they changed it on the spot to Milo or whatever, but he's referred to as Milo the entire fucking movie.
That's my guess too.
Yeah. And so when IMDb put the page together, they just used the script or whatever for people's names.
Right.
Okay. All right.
IMDb does weird things sometimes. If you go on the $2 late fees page on IMDb, they add our episodes. Someone's adding our content all the time on IMDb. We're not.
Oh, wow. That's wild.
Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they get it wrong. So
Interesting. Oh, wow. I did. I know it is like one of those things where you know, and I have seen like, you know, plot summaries of movies and stuff, and it's written by other people when I'm like trying to find the official plot summary, and I'm like, oh,
Right.
okay. It's like, so I guess you can just submit things, but someone should submit to change his name to Milo because it's not Miles.
Cam, get on that.
Yeah, buddy, you do that.
Yeah, buddy, you do that.
Google it.
That was the nicest way of like being a dick. Yeah, buddy, you do that. I'm going to remember that.
I didn't even mean for it to be dickish, but I hear it. I heard it right when it came out of my mouth, and I hoped that we could just slide past it, but you know.
Do you see the pile of dishes in the sink? Yeah, buddy, you do that.
Oh, fuck me. Oh, shit. Oh, God. Good one. All right. Now I can't cut that fucking line out, so now I have to keep it all in.
No, you got to keep it all in.
Oh, man. So Rosemary has 10 headshots on the wall, and Henry predicts Milo. Is it Milo or Milo?
I mean, I would say Milo for this, but then there's that fucking guy Milo Ventimiglia or whatever from Heroes and This Is Us.
Yeah, and he
Your
goes by
name's
Milo.
Yeah, I had a student named Milo. I called him Milo.
Okay. Milo, Pilo, Philo.
My name's Milo. Your name is fuck you. Your name is. You do that, buddy.
Yeah, why don't you do that, pal? Oh my God. So Henry predicts Milo will pick number 7. Well, you know, Milo sounds more Russian, so I'm gonna go with Milo actually.
Yes.
Without looking at him, because Rosemary implies that's the one Milo would pick. Your choice is my choice. God, he's such a wimp, you know.
Yeah.
Rosemary says that's not what I was saying, but it's cut off when the bombastic Milo, Peter Stormare, enters the room. Milo is a huge personality, and not in a good way. He walks in and pats Rosemary on the butt, which she doesn't appreciate. Then he gets the room riled up by chanting Bruiser. Henry is clearly impressed by Milo and looks up to him. Milo tells the team that Rosemary will be shooting the cover and she'll be picking amateur models, so they don't have to pay one the usual going rate of $300,000 or so. By the way, I used to work at a photography studio that would shoot magazines and covers and stuff like that. No model is making $300,000 unless you are literally Cindy Crawford or like a mega model. And even then, I don't think they're making $300K for a cover, man.
No, dude.
Milo goes into a whole speech about instincts and his balls and how they're related, and it clearly makes Rosemary and Henry uncomfortable. By the way, guys and gals, if you've never seen this movie, the I would say one of the top reasons to watch this movie is for Peter Stormare and all of his dialogue.
Oh, it's the number one.
Don't worry though, I'll give Zach some dialogue, some Peter Stormare dialogue in a little bit. You're like, it's okay. You don't have to. It's okay. Zach starts shaking his head. No. Not like these.
That's not very...
As Zach is getting canceled, he's saying not like this, like the chicken white from Matrix, you know? She's like, not like these. Not like these.
No.
Henry immediately yells out, number 7. And he looks at Rosemary and smiles. Other people in the boardroom call out numbers, but are quickly shot down as Milo starts removing pictures and giving reasons why. Bad teeth, too generic, etc. It comes down to number 7 and number 9. Henry steps up and says he's still sticking with number 7. Milo laughs and puts his arm around Henry and says,
I admire him. And because I admire him, I can be honest enough to tell him, your taste is in your ass.
He takes the photo down and says number 7 is a fucking skunk. I love that. Milo wipes his ass with it and tosses the photo at Henry.
Well, I think that's what you do.
Yeah, when you don't select somebody, you wipe your ass with it. And you throw.
I believe so. I think that's the appropriate response.
Yeah, that's industry standard right there.
Yes.
Milo then turns to the last photo on the wall and says,
now this is what I call a bruiser.
Unfortunately, this is where things get problematic. Milo turns to Rosemary and asks what the model's ethnicity is. Of course, he doesn't ask it like that, and I'll do this one. He asks if she, and I quote, is a chink or a Jap. Again, guys, I quote. Rosemary says in disgust, she's American. She was born here, Milo. Her father's from Korea, her mother's Puerto Rican. Milo makes more racist comments about the potential model, and people laugh uncomfortably. Now, Zach, have you ever truly known anyone like this?
In that position of power, no, but I've known plenty of people who've said plenty of racist stuff.
We all know people who have had little shades of Milo styles, because I don't want to refer to him as Peter Stormare because I'm sure he's the nicest, sweetest person in the world, but I think we all have known people with shades of Milo styles to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Milo congratulates Rosie on finding the next face of Bruiser, then leads a chant in the boardroom. We make heat, as the meeting concludes. As he leaves, everyone grumbles, and one lady gives Milo the middle finger from behind his back. So at least everyone's sort of aware that he's a piece of shit.
Right.
As everyone leaves and it's only Henry and Rosemary in the room, Henry slumps over and complains that Rosemary said number 7 was her choice. Rosemary corrects him. No, I said I thought she'd be Milo's choice. I know you picked her because of me. You're very sweet. Other guys should take a lesson. They talk shit about Milo, but Henry reminds her that Milo has been good to him. He's given Henry a lot of breaks over his career. He can't just forget that. Henry tries to tell Rosemary that she's one of his only true friends, and possibly how he feels about her, but Milo cuts him off from the hallway.
Greedlow, get your ass in here.
Milo asks if the party is good to go. Henry thinks he's talking about the barbecue later, but Milo says,
the masquerade.
Fucking perfect, bro.
I don't know.
No, it's great. I knew you were gonna hone in on Peter Stormare within just a few sentences.
Rosemary sucks, by the way. She sucks.
Yeah.
Like her character is trash. She should have been killed at the end. Spoiler.
No, I completely agree with you. And keep in mind, I mean, she is married to Milo, and it's like when people, talk about Melania and she's just as much of a piece of shit as she knew what she was doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like Rosemary, it's kind of the same thing. Like, I don't have any sympathy for Rosemary, to be honest with you.
Oh, when so-and-so is no longer with us, the book that she's going to write is going to be amazing.
Yeah, and she'll get paid money she doesn't deserve. So,
and she's not going to write it. She'll have a ghostwriter writing it.
Yeah, so no. I have no sympathy for people like that. You reap what you sow.
Exactly. And I mean, it goes back to the old adage, you're judged by the company you keep. And I pride myself on keeping good company. You, Dustin, Diallo, Paul London, you guys are all my friends and you guys are all good dudes. I try not to have fucking pieces of shit as friends because it says that I'm a piece of shit.
That's right. You got to take the bologna and the macaroni. No.
Pretty soon you're going to have to take the salami.
It's not very...
Henry says everything is ready. Milo asks if he's coming. Henry says he's setting everything up, but now Milo means the barbecue. He says it's one of those events where you bring your wife, Of course, right? Henry says he and his wife will be there. Milo is pleased. Now, what's interesting, there are 2 different shots in this, and you can tell Peter Stormare's all over the place because he walks out of his light, where he's lit for in the first half of this little hallway scene, and then when they sort of go back to him, he's standing back in his light, but he walks into shadow. So you can just tell that Peter Stormare is just all over the set when he's doing his thing.
Doing his thing.
As Henry's walking into his office, his secretary sends a call through to him. It's about his application for a platinum credit card. Henry says his wife wasn't impressed with his gold card, so he wanted to upgrade. The person on the line says that his credit is impeccable, but his assets are a bit low. Henry wasn't expecting to hear that. He figured he might have overestimated, but not by that much. Credit cards. Impressing your wife.
Impressing your wife. Oh, yeah, exactly. Live a humble life, y'all. Live a humble life.
I impress my wife with my donger.
First, you take the bologna.
I love the look Zach just gets. He's just like, fuck me. God damn it.
Oh, boy.
I was a teacher at one point in my life.
Oh, boy. I lost again.
Oh man, you're coming in hot with the Chevy Chase quotes, with the flesh quotes. Flesh quotes. Jesus.
Hey, you got any flesh quotes?
God. Real quick, guys and gals, I don't know if you can tell by my audio is a little bit more hollow. I'm back at my mom's house, and we're in Maryland, and it is 100% humidity, and I am sweating my ass off in here. But
oh, dude.
Oh, mamma mia.
He's got some flesh quotes.
There you go. Perfect.
Growing on his scrotes.
We should just end it there, man. Go out on a high note.
The end.
The end. Thanks, Cam.
I am a man who will fight for... End credits.
I am a Cam who will fight for your honor.
The power of Sully.
Hey, everybody. Corey here. I just want to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Hey, everybody. I'm Tim.
And I'm Dean.
And we're the hosts of Talking Back. We're a retro-based podcast covering movies, comics, video games, and more.
Check us out every Monday where we hit the rewind button and dig into some of our favorite content from the past. We like to keep things fun, lighthearted, and informative.
Do you feel like you need more nostalgia in your life? Then check out Talking Back. We're available everywhere podcasts are found.
And now, back to the show. Cut to Henry and Jimmy playing tennis later that afternoon. They have some banter back and forth while they play. Jimmy tells a stupid joke, but Henry wants to talk about the guy who killed himself on the radio. We see Henry score on Jimmy, but Jimbo says it was out of bounds and marks the ground with his racket, and he marks it out of bounds. So now we totally see that he's a fucking cheater. He also, he looks like a scumbag.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Like that early 2000s scumbag where they have these sort of spiky, crunchy hair, you know?
Yeah, it's no longer slicked back like it was in the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. As they leave the tennis court, Henry keeps talking about the on-air suicide. He can't figure out why someone would do that. I mean, so what if your life sucks? Whose doesn't? As Henry and Jimmy walk through the club, Henry tells his friend and financial advisor about the phone call with the credit card company and how his assets came up short. Jimmy asks if Henry thinks there's been any tampering. Henry wonders, by who? Jimbo says it's probably just a computer glitch. He'll take care of it. Until then, do us all a favor and don't get worked up, okay? Like your friend on the radio. He gets himself all worked up. I guarantee you, if I ever get cheesed enough to shoot somebody, the last person I'm going to shoot is me. Henry smiles at his quote, unquote, friend. And there's some dialogue in here, again, that I'm just like, who says that? If I ever get cheesed.
I say cheesed.
Do you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then let me ask you something. Well, I mean, so Romero's from Pittsburgh, but I guess, am I, like, I grew up in Maryland. Is that closer to Pittsburgh than you growing up in Detroit?
I don't say it because of, I've probably said cheesed in the past, like, 5 years, 10 years.
Okay.
Cheesed out. Oh, he totally cheesed out.
Okay. All right. Well, but here it's like it's pinched. And the dialogue with all the dame and everything, you would think that Jim would say, like, if I ever get pinched, you know, type of thing.
Yeah, Shane, if I ever get pinched, yeah.
Meh.
Last time I put on shoes, they were made out of cement, and then I walked into the water, and you never saw me again, Shane.
Yeah, Shane.
What? Yeah, Shane.
Sleeping with the fishes, Shane.
2 wrongs don't make a right, but one right definitely makes a wrong, Shane.
2 rights make an airplane.
Huh.
That's what I always remember as a kid. 2 wrongs don't make a right, but 2 rights make an airplane.
Sure.
Tell that to your kids at school. Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Yeah, buddy. I don't even remember what you said earlier, but I'm trying to call back.
Yeah, buddy. Go do that. Whatever the hell I said.
Yeah. Go do that, buddy.
Cut to Mila's barbecue at his mansion. He has a mansion. Like, his is a fucking mansion.
Toronto has great spots. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah. Didn't we saw Toronto in body bags, didn't we? Body parts.
We did see it in Body Parts. They actually filmed this movie in they filmed it in Toronto and Waterloo. So I was not wrong on that, and I totally just pulled that out of my butt. So along with the Juicy Ropes.
We've seen enough fucking movies that were filmed there that we know.
And then there's a rule, I don't know about the rule on the East Coast, but the rule here on the West Coast in Vancouver, like you have to have a percentage of your film crew that has to be Canadian in order to shoot in Canada. So that's why some of the actors, you're like, I'm never going to see that guy again ever, am I? Nope. Unless you watch the CBC.
The CW, you mean?
No, CBC, the Canadian Broadcast Company.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, also a lot of CW shows are shot up there as well. But that's actually a good point. I totally forgot about that half of your crew or whatever has to be Canadian. So, yeah, you get a lot of Canadian actors as well.
That's why X-Files always was like, what? Why does Cigarette Smoking Man have a Canadian? Oh.
Yeah, and I feel like the Highlander show was shot up there as well.
So many of those shows, yeah.
Yeah. Well, shit, wasn't even, we talked to Richard Chavez. Wasn't War of the Worlds shot up there too, pretty much?
I believe so, yeah. Yep.
By the way, go back and listen to that interview. Man, that was one of the most downloaded interviews we've ever done on both of our feeds.
Both, yeah. The video interview on YouTube it took us to over 1,000 subscribers thanks to Richard Chavez.
That's awesome. And he's been so cool with us. He's been such a nice guy. Like, honestly, it's amazing. I mean, like, seriously, if you went back and told fucking, 9-year-old Corey he was going to be friends with Poncho one day, his favorite member of Dutch's rescue team, little 9-year-old Corey would say, fuck you and shut your fucking mouth because you're a liar.
Eat a juicy rope.
Eat a juicy rope made with my beet juice.
You said it.
The place is packed, and Milo is walking around acting like a jerk. He
and
pushes
the
one
music
guy
sucks.
into the. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does.
It's so like 2000 trash. It's like 2000 trash.
I know. He pushes one guy into the pool, smacks a kid on the back of the head. Real fun shit.
Real tough guy stuff.
One of his employees compliments Milo on the house, and he yells to Rosie that he'll never give up an inch of it. Rosemary and her entourage walk into a room where Henry is having a mask of his face made. He's lying in a chair with plaster covering his face. She helps him drink through a straw. Behind them, two of her friends are asking if she's filed for divorce yet. Not without a term sheet. All Rosie has to do is not move out. Outside by the pool, Tom is staring at the new face of Bruiser, model number 9, which is what I refer to her as for the rest of the fucking episode.
Fair.
Back in the mask room, Rosemary shows Henry the mask that is his face. It's stark white with a blank expression. Henry thinks it's cool. I can see myself. Rosemary says, yes, but can you make other people see you? Henry doesn't understand. Paint it, color it, whatever you think might make people recognize that it's you. Cut to a little side garden in the backyard of the mansion, and Rosemary has multiple masks on display, which she refers to as her garden of lost souls. One of her friends says the only one she can recognize is Wilson, implying that all the masks are faces of people at Bruiser. Henry asks if Milo made a mask, but before she can answer, one of her friends says it's enough that she has to look at his real face. Rosemary says, Gloria, most of the time, but is cut off by her friend saying, I think we all know how Milo spends most of his time. Another friend says, and with whom? All you have to do is prove it, Rosie. And I didn't obviously, first time viewing, you don't really know, but it's sad on the second viewing because you're like, oh, everyone knows that fucking Henry's a cuck. Like, everyone knows that it's Janine that he's fucking. It's like an open secret that everyone knows except for Henry.
Yeah, it's sad. And unfortunately, I don't know anybody like that, thankfully, but I mean, that's why the term cuck still exists.
It's a thing that happens, man. And I fucking feel bad for anyone that's like sort of in Henry's shoes until you do what Henry does. Then I don't feel bad for you anymore.
Yeah.
Henry and Rosemary sit on a bench and flirt a little. Henry says they should stop hiding. From the party, he means. Rosemary agrees that she should make an appearance. She goes back to the party and leaves Henry to try and paint his mask. He doesn't seem very inspired. Cut to Tom talking to Milo about the new cover girl. Milo tells him after next month's issue, everyone will want her, but tonight she's fair game. This is Tom's chance to prove to her that he's a man. Tom thanks Milo for the advice and leaves Milo at the bar with Henry's wife, Janine. She calls him a total sleaze, to which Milo replies,
"Then what the hell are you?"
as he lights her cigarette. Janine asks why he has to fuck with people all the time. Milo says because there's nothing else you can do with him. He looks around and says he doesn't even know half of these people. All he cares about is that they are busy, and what's keeping them busy is him. Janine smiles and calls him a bastard. Milo stands up and stands right next to her and says,
"Everyone needs a bastard in their life. It gives them a yardstick to measure themselves by."
He says that as he thrusts his hips towards her. Janine says that Milo's yardstick is out there. He tells her to play with it. Janine tells him not to pop off. "I've never met a guy that pops off as fast as you," she says as she jerks Milo off by the bar. He says that old guys lose their patience quickly. Over by the Garden of Lost Souls, we see Henry watch his wife give his boss a hand job.
Cuck, 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 cuck.
But I do like how they added this little character thing for Milo that he comes quickly.
Sure. I mean, got to make him inferior in some way, you know?
Right. Cut to Janine driving Henry home from the barbecue. They stop at a gas station and he confronts his wife about giving Milo a hand job at the bar. Janine says, "You noticed? Thank God you're not brain dead." Henry says he tries his best. He goes out there every day and Janine cuts him off and says, "And let people walk all over you." Henry says there are rules. Janine says, "You hear about women who fuck their way to the top. Me, I've been fucking my way to the bottom. 6 years, and what do we have to show for it?" Henry says, "A life?" She scoffs and says, "You saw me jerking a guy off, for Christ's sake. Did you slug him? No." She says she wants to go someplace, but Henry's going no place. Cue the Fire Inc. song from Streets of Fire.
No, unfortunately, God, how embarrassing.
Jesus, man. Fucking, you know what I thought? Cold-blooded.
Cold-blooded.
Dude.
She had a choice too, you know.
She's trash.
Yeah, they do. She does a good job of being effectively rotten. So she's gonna get what the character thinks she deserves soon.
There you go. They get back to their unfinished would-be mansion. Janine tells Henry to get out of the car and that she's not going inside. Henry stumbles out of the car and walks into the garage grumbling. "I'm nothing, huh? Fuck you." He turns around to see that Janine is racing towards him in their Mustang. Henry grabs an axe and swings it just as the car hits him. He lands on the hood and the axe smashes into the windshield and lands in Janine's head. Unfortunately, this is another fantasy, and Janine drives off yelling, "Don't wait up."
In a nice car, too.
Yeah, nice 2000 Mustang.
Yeah.
Sure, that was, brand new at the time.
Yep.
Inside, we see Henry pouring himself a big glass of vodka. The next morning, we see Henry do his usual routine of push-ups, then taking a shower while listening to the radio talk show. A caller is talking about the guy that killed himself the day before. He's famous now, but the host doesn't see the point of being dead and famous. As the conversation is happening, Henry gets out of the shower and wipes the steam off his mirror. He's shocked to see that he's wearing the white blank mask. When he tries to take it off, his fingernail scratches his jaw and it bleeds. The mask isn't a mask, it's his face. So, when I saw obviously the cover of the movie, I was like, oh, cool, it's going to be a mask that he wears. And you see the mask that they make. I'm like, oh, I get it. I didn't watch the trailer at all. I had no idea that there was going to be this pseudo supernatural element. And then halfway through the movie, I'm like, okay, maybe it's just in his head and no one else can actually see the mask. But later there's going to be a newspaper with, his masked face on it. I'm like, oh, so it is. And it's never explained what the fuck it is and how it happens. But, I get it. It's this whole idea that, you're losing face when you don't stand up for yourself, and it's a metaphor and everything. But it looks really cool. What was your takeaway the first time you saw this? Did you think it was real? Did you think it was in his head?
Oh, no, I felt like it was real, and it's very cool looking for sure. The makeup effects are awesome. It looks like it because he really tugs on it, and you get that thing must have been super glued to his face.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, it's a really cool scene, and yeah, I You hit the nail on the head. It's totally a metaphor. It's a metaphor for not standing up for yourself.
Yeah. And apparently, according to Jason Flemyng, like he couldn't see shit out of it, of course. So they had to do extensive rehearsals, and then he would have to put the mask on because, you know, so he would know where to stand, where his marks were, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they're pinholes, guys. They're pinholes. It's the pencil holes. You know, you can barely see through that. That makes sense. Must have been really claustrophobic too.
Yeah, I would hate that because you can breathe through his mouth and his nose, but there's got to be something about that, your eyes not being able to see like that must have been really rough. But also, Zach, like the look of it, I mean, it's a really unique looking sort of pseudo slasher, killer style, character. Like it's, I mean, it's not quite Jason Voorhees, but it falls under that whole like slasher wearing a mask type of thing.
Yeah, if this was a little more on the superhero side, you could see the potential of, like I said earlier in the recording, you could see the potential for more movies to come versus just being straight up revenge.
Or every sequel, every other movie is just a different person and the mask grows on their face too.
Yeah, I could see that too.
Yeah, but the ending, we'll talk about the ending, when we get there. Henry frantically tries to wash off the mask while the caller says that the man that killed himself yesterday isn't actually dead. It's him. It's the caller. He's going to make everyone pay. Henry shuts off the radio and walks into the living room. Now, I didn't actually pick up on that caller dialogue until my second viewing. Do you think that was really the caller? Because we kind of don't really ever go back to the suicide call again. Do you think that was sort of the wrap-up end of the... Like, do you think that guy was the guy who pretended to commit suicide? Or do you think it was just a guy riding sort of the coattails type of thing?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm going to say it was.
Okay, so maybe the guy didn't actually kill himself?
Yes.
Which would be interesting because really when you think about it, the guy killing himself is the impetus for Henry to sort of... his ideas to go like, I should be standing up for myself. And like, what if the impetus was actually a ruse? Like it was never a real thing that happened,
Right. No, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't either. And the movie doesn't, ever say whether or not it is that guy or not,
No. Yeah, it's true. It kind of gets dropped after this.
Yeah. Henry says to himself that it must be a dream as he puts on his shirt and tie, but he's still in his boxers. As he's standing there, the cleaning lady, Katie, yells out from the other side of the house if anyone's home. The garage door was left open. Henry says that Janine isn't home, but he's here. Katie doesn't respond. Instead, we see her stuffing silver candle holders into her purse. She's stealing from Henry, and he sees it happening. Again, this was also kind of weird because there's moments in the scene where he's like talking to her, but she doesn't seem to hear him. And I'm like, is it because the house is too big? Or is it because this is a dream? Or is it because... supernatural things?
Supernatural. Today.
But, did you notice that? Like, why didn't she respond when he was talking to her?
Because he's like in his own head, I think.
Okay, do you think maybe that response was just in his head?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I like that. As the cleaning lady walks further into the house, Henry hides behind one of the tarps. She calls him a bastard in Spanish, and Henry says, "Excuse me?" But again, she doesn't hear him. That's why I was like, what?
Yeah.
We see the cleaning lady steal money out of Henry's wallet, and now he confronts her. He says she stole money out of his wallet and the silver. Katie denies it and pretends to tidy the place up, but she doesn't look at him, so she doesn't see his face. She keeps speaking Spanish, and finally Henry replies fluently. She's shocked to find out that he speaks Spanish too. Henry says, "You must have a lovely home, Katie, with all the things you've stolen." She says that she took nothing. Then they both go for her purse at the same time. Henry gets to it first and says, "If you took nothing, then there's nothing in the bag," and he hits her in the head with it. Katie goes fucking flying and knocks over the sofa with her.
Yeah, I mean, we finally start getting the kills now.
Things start picking up. But it is like 20 minutes into the movie, though.
Yeah.
Shaken, Henry looks in the mirror and is shocked to see his face is still the blank white face. He knows it's not a dream. It's all real. Henry walks over to check on Katie, but hears Janine pull up in the driveway. He quickly tries to cover things up by putting the sofa back and covering Katie's body with a tarp and dragging it into a different part of the kitchen. Janine yells that the dog was out all night and brings in the little shit. She keeps calling out for Henry, but instead he hides and doesn't respond. This is the most disturbing moment in the movie for me. Just then, Katie starts twitching in the tarp and she throws it open. Blood splatters Henry's white face mask. We see Katie convulsing and her eyes twitching. Dude, I was like, oh, that's the shit right there. Like, that's what I came here to see.
Right, I know, yeah. And I think that was edited for I think this is like the unrated version.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, dude, that was... I'm always freaked out, and it's sort of, I hate head shit, and you're still alive. I hate head shit, and you're still alive, and it goes back to fucking Hamburger Hill when What's-His-Nuts from Wings comes walking out of the smoke at the very end of the movie, and the top of his head is blown off, and smoke is just coming out of it, but he's still walking because his fucking body doesn't know that he's dead, you know? And that, as a kid, that traumatized the fuck out of me.
Yeah, Hamburger Hill is hard to watch.
Yeah, fuck it is. Like, that was like we knew that was a rough movie. It was kind of, me and my friend group, it was kind of a rite of passage film, you know, like, let's finally do Hamburger Hill. And I've never seen it since because it scared the fuck out of me.
You don't need to either.
Henry covers Katie back up as we see Janine and the dog walk into the living room. Janine doesn't notice anything, but the dog walks right over to Henry and Katie. Henry grabs Pupsy. We finally found out what the dog's name is. Pupsy.
Yeah, Pupsy. Terrible name.
Yeah. While Janine is walking around, Katie twitches and hits the power switch for the saw. Henry lets the dog go and it walks through the blood towards Janine, leaving a trail of bloody paw prints. Janine unplugs the saw while saying that her husband doesn't know what to do with the extension cord. Then she calls someone on the phone. We don't know who she's talking to, but she's going to go away with that person. She walks into the bedroom and Henry runs out and grabs his pants and shoes, then runs back into the kitchen. Janine leaves the house and Henry gets into his car to follow her, but not before giving the dog a big steak to eat in the garage.
It's not the dog's fault.
No, it's his shitty mom.
Yeah, exactly.
Henry follows Janine to the Bruiser headquarters downtown. She walks in. We see a blind man playing saxophone outside the building. I thought this guy was going to be more of something, and they kind of even point to him later, or Peter Stormare does, but it never really, nothing happens with it.
No, it's like a loose end. I don't know if were there any cut scenes on this Blu-ray or anything like that?
I watched a lot of the interviews, but I didn't actually see anything that said, like, cut anything. I feel like everything is there. I feel like we saw everything.
Yeah. Okay, it makes sense.
It's a great hour and 39 minutes, but you could totally shave the fucking saxophone guy.
9 minutes off, yep.
Yeah. Inside the Bruiser office, we see Janine meet with Milo in the boardroom. Shortly after, Henry gets out of the elevator. Inside the boardroom, Milo dances around Janine. She asks if his dick is on steroids. She said, "We spent all last night in bed and we're going to spend the whole weekend in bed." Milo says,
"Bed is a blessing given to us by the gods."
He grabs her and picks her up and says,
"But how often do you get to make it on a 40,000 fucking conference table?"
He throws her on the table and starts taking off her clothes as the shutters go down, sealing off the room. I've never seen anything like that before.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, this is a futuristic office.
It must be a Canadian thing.
Yeah, it's a Canadian thing. Right, guys? Right, talking back, right?
Yeah.
Action.
Our Canadian pals.
All our brothers up there, right, Lee?
Yeah, Lee, tell us, buddy. Do all conference rooms have shutters and shit? As they're mid-coitus, one of the shutters opens and Rosemary says, "Gotcha, dickhead," and takes a picture. Milo goes chasing after her, leaving Janine on the $40,000 conference table. Rosie gets in the elevator, yelling she just wants what's fair, while Milo yells shit in his underwear. Back in the conference room, Janine lights up a cigarette. She hears a noise and gets up to investigate. Just then, the door next to her is thrown open and Henry is standing there with his white face splattered with blood. He says, "What's the matter? Shocked by my appearance?" "Well, let me tell you, I'm shocked by yours." Janine calls Henry crazy as she tries to get away from her husband by hiding under the table. Henry says she took away his identity. Now there's nothing left. Then he whispers, "Where am I?" as Janine's looking around scared. She crawls out from under the desk, and as she does, Henry wraps his tie around her neck and wrenches her up to her feet. Janine claws at Henry's face, leaving 2 long cuts right above his left eyebrow. Henry drags her backwards while saying, "I may be a loser, but I know exactly what to do with the extension cord." A callback to what he'd heard her say earlier in the house.
Right.
He grabs a giant extension cord on a spindle, and Janine screams. Outside in the parking lot, Rosemary gets in the car and speeds off, leaving Milo screaming at her in his boxer briefs. Just then, he hears a window shatter and looks up to see a chair flying down to the ground below, followed by Janine, except she's attached to the extension cord. We hear a snap and see her hanging there, and Milo looks shocked.
It's a great shatter scene where great effect and great sound design and all that stuff when she comes out the window. It's very effective.
And also good acting on Milo. I mean, or Peter Stormare. Like, he's like watching it happen. He's like, holy fucking shit, you know?
Yeah. Oh my God, what's going on up there?
I threw my salami in her earlier.
I want to go back to playing Minecraft in Belgium and Sweden.
Now you're turning into Hans and Franz from SNL. Pump you up. It was great seeing Dana Carvey back, by the way, on SNL for the premiere of the fifth. Yeah, he played Biden, played Joe Biden.
Oh no, I have to watch that.
It was good. Back in the boardroom, Henry puts his sunglasses back on and looks around. Someone runs behind him, and Henry chases after that person. He finds the man hiding behind a curtain in a different room. The man says, "Don't hurt me. Please, Henry. I heard you talking, you and Janine." Henry pulls back the curtain to reveal Tom. Tom looks scared. "Jesus, Henry, what happened to you?" Outside the parking lot, we see Milo at a payphone calling the cops while people look up at Janine's body. Back in the building, Henry tells Tom that Janine was right. He's been eating shit for years. "Don't develop a taste for it, Tom. You'll end up like me." Henry looks in the mirror and sees that part of his mask is back to normal over his left eye. But when he looks in a different mirror, his face is back to being sort of a full mask. And again, that's why I was like, okay, it's in his head, you know, sort of thing. But yeah, okay. It's supernatural.
Supernatural. But I don't know if this is a disjointed part of the script or not, because we are to believe that everyone sees him in that mask. I think that moment is in his head when he sees the...
Okay.
Yeah,
that's a great point. It. Okay, so the real face is the one that's all white, but he sees the little chunk missing. Okay,
yeah,
not the other way around. Okay, good point. Thanks, buddy. That's why that's why I'm glad we do these breakdowns. You know,
I have my moments.
Just like Han Solo, you do have your moments.
Yes, true. Is that where I got that from?
Maybe it's possible.
No,
you're right. No, fuck Star Wars. No. Henry tells Tom that he doesn't know what's happening to him, and he's not sure that he knows what to do. Henry starts wiping the blood off his face and tells Tom that if he doesn't tell anyone about him, he'll let Tom go. Tom says he swears he won't say a word. Before Henry leaves, he leans in and whispers, "Don't disappoint me. I've been disappointed enough. And so has my wife in bed."
Jeez.
But the funny thing is, Tom looks like the kind of guy that disappoints women in bed, though.
Yeah, he does.
With his soft face.
Soft, yeah. And then he's got his hair slicked back later. I'm like, it's not a good look, dude. It's not a good look.
No, it's not.
But if you look at him now, he looks nothing like that.
No, he doesn't. He doesn't.
He cleaned up well.
Yeah, no, I like him better now. Enter Tom motherfucking Atkins as Detective McCleary and his partner who gives a shit.
Yeah, his partner what? But this is like halfway into the movie already, right? At this point, I think.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we're like at like 40 minutes or something, and yeah, it's about halfway. So, yeah.
It is interesting, you know. Clearly is that considered a cameo or just a supporting actor? Cameo,
I know, but like Tom Atkins is kind of in it pretty much, you know, more moving forward. So I wouldn't call it a cameo.
That's true.
I would call Peter Mintz's appearance later as a cameo, or Boyd Banks's appearance later as a cameo. But I think Tom Atkins is he's solid. He's got a solid amount of screen time in this.
Agreed.
They walk over to ask Milo what happened. Milo gets immediately defensive and says she jumped. And this is funny because it's like, so now the cops are there and everything, but the body's still just hanging there. So like, but I guess I was like, but what would you do? Like, I guess, I mean, I know it's a crime scene, but I guess in for the sake of the people all around, you'd probably get a cherry picker there as quickly as possible and get the body down, or at least put a blanket over it. But like at this point, everyone just can see her body hanging there. Yeah,
just hanging.
Kids walking by. There's a lady, half-naked lady hanging there.
Mommy.
Mommy, no. So anyway, I say Milo gets immediately defensive and says she jumped. McCleary thinks Janine was murdered. Milo tells the cops to ask the crowd. They saw what happened. He doesn't even mentions the saxophonist, It's like, okay, so you had to show the saxophonist, I guess. And the saxophonist is playing the soundtrack to this entire crime scene, too.
Yeah, it's interesting. The opening to this movie had a really cool kind of noirish sound to it, and then this is okay. I like the opening though to the movie with the noirish saxophone.
Agreed. Yeah, me too, buddy. The score is not one of my favorites, but I do understand. I feel like I get what he's trying to do in some of the parts, like noir, at the beginning.
Right.
Just then, Henry drives by. He's wearing a hat and sunglasses, but you can see his white face mask. Inside the offices, we see a whole group of reporters have been let in. One of them notices the security camera. And then I'm like, honestly, I couldn't see the police letting them in. The whole floor is a crime scene, but the reporters are in the building, not outside. So I was like, this kind of took me out of it, because I was like, there's no way the police would let them in there.
Yeah, agreed.
Back outside, a uniformed officer calls down to McCleary to show him a pair of pants, but drops the pants out the window.
That's hilarious. That's one of my favorite moments in this movie.
I mean, too, because McCleary says, that was good. See if you can mess up the crime scene some more. Fucking right. Chad Rule. And I had to look up what Chad Rule was. And it's derived from, it's Italian, but it means stupid person.
I never knew that.
I had never heard of it in my life. And obviously I had subtitles on when I was writing it down. So I typed it in, and, autocorrect didn't give me the red squiggly line. So I'm like, oh, it's okay. It's a word. So I looked it up,
You'll never hear it again, too.
Never. McCleary asks Milo about the clothing, and Mr. Bruiser admits to having an affair with Janine. McCleary asks if anyone else was around, and Milo admits his ex-wife saw them. The detective asks if he saw his ex-wife leave the building, implying she might be involved, and Milo freaks out.
My Rosie, she's an angel. That's a horrible thing to say, sir.
I love how he's so fun. He's so funny. And I mean, we cut out a lot of dialogue. This movie's very dialogue heavy. Again, watch it, if only for Peter Stormare.
Yes.
Cut to Henry driving up to his house, but he parks his car in the backyard instead of the garage. He drags the dead body of the cleaning lady and puts her into his car, then he cleans up the blood. As he's finishing up, he hears a car pull up and goes to the front door but doesn't open it. It's Detective McCleary and his partner who gives a fuck. Henry pulls out a pistol, and I even capitalize it too, and it's all one word, who gives a fuck.
I believe that's his name.
I believe so.
It's
Poon.
French.
It's Comanche Indian.
It's Comanche Indian.
Henry pulls out a pistol from the drawer and loads it. Just then the phone rings, and he lets it go to voicemail. It's the police asking to talk to him about his wife. Outside, McCleary and his partner are discussing if they should break down the door, but the older detective knows the captain will have their ass if they do it without a warrant. We see Henry pointing a gun at them, then slowly raises it to his own head. Just as Henry puts the gun under his chin, he hears McCleary say, "No, he didn't do it. The other dame did it." McCleary's partner doesn't think Rosemary did it, though. It has to be a guy because of how hard it is to throw someone through a closed window. McCleary reminds him that the chair broke the glass. It was the dame. They make a bet over it. As they leave, Henry listens to the voicemail from Jimmy. He saw the news and tells Henry not to freak out. He tells him if Janine is dead, there's all kinds of, quote, legal shit to take care of. He wants Henry to call him before he does anything. Now, real quick about him overhearing the two cops. Like two plot like plot things happen in this movie based on Henry hearing clearly from a distance, things that are being said, which I also found to be a little bit sus, as Bodie would say.
It is a little sus. I do like the when he's listening to the outgoing message and he gets like sentimental for a minute. He gets sentimental for a moment because he's listening to the happier times with his wife. And that's kind of sweet.
Yeah, because, he did love her at one point.
Yeah.
And probably still does, obviously. It's just, it's so fresh.
Well, he did.
Yeah.
She did not.
No.
After the love is gone, you put on a white mask and kill them all.
Jesus. That should have been the Misfits song.
Right. Yeah.
Henry walks into his unfinished office and starts looking through the financial paperwork that Janine was in charge of. As he's looking over the numbers, it all starts to make sense and he starts laughing. Henry then starts trashing his house. He takes his credit cards out and throws them in some of Katie's blood that he didn't clean up. He then places his driver's license on his shirt and shoots the license. He shoots a picture of Janine, then he looks over at the garage when he hears Pupsy barking and says, "You have been the most annoying thing in my life." He shoots a picture of the dog. Henry then starts painting his face with brown makeup and gives himself eyebrows. So he's trying to make it less white, but it still looks nightmarish.
It reminds me of when Eddie Murphy went dressed up as a white man on Saturday Night Live and rode the bus. And it's so funny. If you guys have never seen that, go look it up on YouTube. It's hilarious.
It's a fucking classic.
Yeah.
Cut to Rosemary in her dark room developing the photo she took of Milo and Janine as the news talks about the killing and that no one has been arrested. She takes one of her blank masks and throws it on top of the picture. Cut to Henry down by the docks using a payphone. He's talking to the cleaning service agency and telling them that Katie never showed up for work today. Henry then tosses her body, still wrapped in the plastic tarp, into the water with a chain and the silver she tried to steal to weigh her down. At Milo's house, he's trying to work out, but someone is at the door ringing the bell. He yells for his maid, but she doesn't respond. As Milo is about to answer the door, the phone rings and distracts him. We see through the window that Henry is outside the door and is the one calling. And it's like one of the few attempts to be jump scares in the movie.
Yeah. The more horror type moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because even the music goes boom, to let you know. Yeah. Didn't work though. I didn't jump.
Did any part of you jump?
My dingus. My dingus jumped when they were in the boardroom. Woo, Janine was a smoke show. Anyways, Zach is drinking his water. He's preparing his throat for more Milo dialogue.
Peter Stormare.
Milo walks into the indoor pool area and talks to someone in the pool. He says he'll answer the door and she can get the phone because she's all wet. The woman is wearing a blank mask. When Milo leaves to answer the door, the woman takes off her mask, revealing it's Rosemary. Outside in the backyard, we see Henry sneaking around with the phone to his ear. When Rosemary picks up, he tells her to not go to the door. She quickly figures out it's Henry, and he tells her the police are at the door and they think she did it. He tells her she has to be careful. She asks where he is, and he says he's outside. Rosemary walks into the backyard in her robe. Inside, we see Detective Milo shitting and doing coke in the bathroom. Because that's what you do.
It's what you do when you are Milo. And also, too, that I think one of the reasons I don't like Rosemary is because she's maybe nice enough to Henry to make him think that she's interested in him. Right? Because all he wants to do is pine for somebody. But we all know somebody like that. We've all been down that road in our lives where, the person's just quote unquote being nice to you. But there's a vibe there.
Like she's enjoying the attention she's getting.
She's enjoying the attention. Yeah, and those people do enjoy the attention. And then the moment you kind of make a move on them, that's when they're like, what are you doing? I never gave you the idea that, I was interested in you. I thought we were just friends. And that goes for both guys and girls.
Yeah.
Everybody in between.
Yeah, both ways. Absolutely. And you're right. And I feel like a lot of us have been there. And it does suck. It does fucking suck.
So he's a desperate dude.
Yeah, he's a cuck and he's a desperate dude. Inside, okay.
Cuck, be a lady tonight.
Perfect.
It's like looking for something.
And also, by the way, did you notice that Milo didn't wash his hands? He like fucking gets off the can, flushes, straightens his hair, and walks downstairs. And I'm like, huh?
That's like 90% of people now that COVID is, changed into what it is. But in 3 years ago, we were all so good about it. And then I remember thinking to myself, how long is it going to take before we all go back to that terrible behavior of not washing our hands? If we would all just wash our hands, the world would be a much better place.
And now you know, and knowing's half the battle.
G.I. Joe.
G.I. cock. Oh, but dude, I didn't track this dialogue, but Milo comes out spitting hot fire at Detective McCleary, talking about chickadees and stuff. It's hilarious. But he's talking about his extramarital affairs, but he only goes after grown-ups, no chickies, meaning underage girls. It's fucking fantastic. It's great dialogue,
Do you know the term chicken hawk?
Huh?
Do you know the term chicken hawk? Do you remember that?
I remember it, but it wasn't really like in my lexicon.
Yeah. It's just, I remember it being connected with NAMBLA. Do you remember NAMBLA?
National
MAMBLA?
Man Boy Love Association or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh God, yeah. That was like early internet days when like sort of that came to light and everything.
I'm sure it still exists. It's just like underground, right?
I'm sure. I'm fucking
Jeffrey
sure.
Jones.
Yeah.
And Jeffrey Jones is still alive.
He is. Of all the great people we just lost, we just lost fucking John Amos today.
As
just
of this
today.
recording, in the past 3 or 4 days, we've lost Chris Christopherson, John Amos, John Ashton,
Pete Rose,
the guy who was Oogie Boogie on Nightmare Before Christmas, the voice of Oogie Boogie.
Really?
That's the guy who you're like, I have no idea who that is.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
The Broadway star.
Yeah, but yet Jeffrey Jones still alive.
Yep.
Because evil never dies.
Evil beats out all those other things that go on in your body.
Yeah, evil beet juice is all over him.
No, don't connect beet juice.
And my juicy ropes. Don't make my juicy ropes a bad thing.
No, they're a good thing. They're organic.
Jesus Christ. In the backyard, Henry is still talking to Rosemary on the phone. He says there are only 2 people who had a reason to kill Janine, you and me. Rosie says it wasn't her. Henry tries to push it home. Listen to what I'm saying. One of us did it, and it wasn't you.
That was funny.
But it's not clicking for Rosemary. And they'll address this later, and I like what they sort of do with it. So she's not clicking for her. Unfortunately, they're cut off by Milo and the police coming to the backyard to talk to her. Milo reminds Rosie that she took the picture of him and Janine, and she confirms that she left right after. Milo keeps talking, as he's wont to do, and Rosie tells him to shut the fuck up. When Milo gets angry, Detective McCleary tells him to also shut the fuck up. McCleary asks about the masks, but doesn't really get anywhere with the conversation with Milo around. He looks around before leaving and says, "You never know what might figure in." As Detective McCleary gets back to the police station, he's mobbed by reporters asking him about the tape from the crime scene. McCleary doesn't know what they are talking about because he's a terrible fucking detective. He walks into the captain's office, and the captain and his partner are watching the news. You see Henry's face mask dead center on the screen. So then now I'm like, okay, so it's really there. Everyone can see it. The captain said someone leaked it to the press. McCleary's partner says it must be a mask. The partner says it's the husband, Henry. So he's a good detective.
Right.
McCleary disagrees. Fine, but obviously it's a guy. McCleary disagrees with that too. What's so obvious it's a guy? That could be a dame. I think he just likes saying dame.
I don't like it gets, I don't like when things get overused like that, you know?
Yeah, you could make a drinking game of how many times Tom Atkins says dame, and Henry too. How many times dame is used in this?
It's just kind of like, I don't like it.
No, I'm not the biggest fan. But again, first time it was jarring the first time. But again, when I saw it, I was like, oh, I think he's making like a noir film. And I think he wants it to feel like it's, the 40s, but it's current, one of those things. Kind of like, I mean, like Streets of Fire, you don't really know when that is supposed to take place because it's sort of a fantasy world.
Yeah, and Rick Moranis kind of has the, look here, see? He's kind of the fast-talking gumshoe kind of guy, which I will say Rick Moranis is probably the most annoying part of Streets of Fire.
Yeah.
He really is. Like, to the point where you actually don't like Rick Moranis. He does not do I don't like his performance in that.
He's not my favorite part of that movie for sure.
But that has totally like a 50s vibe to it.
Yeah. But it's sort of timeless. Another movie that does it,
right.
That they don't really put it in your face, but It Follows. I know you've seen that and everything, but if you notice in that movie, there's no cell phones, but she has like this weird clamshell-esque like text machine, and to the director, like it's supposed to indicate that it's not our sort of universe. It's supposed to be sort of like a different universe.
I haven't watched that since I watched it with you, but I totally want to watch it again.
Oh man, I got the Second Sight 4K. It's love that movie so much. He says that Mila's wife makes masks like that. She's got 1 million of them. The captain says maybe she killed the husband too. They executed a warrant on the house and it was a mess. Bullet holes in the walls, his ID in a pool of blood, and one of his shirts has a bullet hole in it. They only have one witness, and the captain pulls out Pupsy from under the desk. The dog licks his face. Oh, it's cute. The partner asks what the blood type is, but the captain says they're still working on it as he's getting face licks. The scene ends with Tom Atkins reading Pupsy her rights. I like that little bit of cute humor.
Yeah, it's cute. It's cute. I agree.
And he didn't kill Pupsy, and I think that's his redeeming quality. There's this idea when you do screenwriting, save the cat. You know, I know you've heard of that, Zach, but you show your hero doing something heroic at the beginning. I think this is sort of weirdly reverse save the cat, where it's like, you think he killed the dog, but we're more than halfway through the film, and he's already killed two people. Sorry, he's already killed 2 people, but you see that he didn't kill the dog. So you're sort of like, I guess he can still be the hero of the movie. Like, you can still relate to him, because that would have been a bridge too far.
He's killing rotten people.
Right. People that deserve it.
Right. So he's an anti-hero?
I think that's what the movie's saying. Yeah, I think he's a complete anti-hero, which it makes sense. The late 90s, early 2000s, man, Punisher comics and everything, it was all
Stone
about
Cold
anti-hero.
Steve Austin.
Yeah, dude, anti-heroes were everywhere. Hey everybody, Corey here. I just wanted to let you know that we'll be right back after these short messages.
Have you been wondering where's the beef? Well, on our podcast, Throwback Trivia Takedown, you might just find that out, as well as some other things about the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
We're a nostalgic-based trivia show that pits 2 challengers head-to-head in a duel of the decades, with categories ranging from movies, TV and music, to slang, food, and fashion. You're sure to get the best in retro-themed trivia.
So strap on your jelly shoes, grab a Surge, and walk like an Egyptian to your favorite podcast app and check out Throwback Trivia Takedown.
I heard even Mikey likes it.
And now, back to the show. Cut to a hotel, and Henry is watching the news about Janine's death. They say the police haven't made an arrest, but they believe it was an isolated incident. We see the footage of Henry in the mask from the Bruiser office. Henry is putting red paint over his eyes and down his cheeks. It almost looks like war paint. And this is when I start digging this, when he starts making his face, basically.
This is cool. Yeah.
I like the sort of the final version before he washes it all away, where he has black over his eyes. That's my favorite.
Yeah, me too.
Cut to Jimbo at the country club hitting tennis balls by himself. No one else seems to be there. We see Henry grab a bucket of balls and a bottle of wine and sit himself at a window on the second floor overlooking the court. As Jimmy is hitting the balls, one comes flying down at him from above. He asks who's there. Henry says, nobody that matters, and tosses down the rest of the balls from the bucket. Jimmy says, Henry? What are you, fucking with me here? Henry says no, he just wants to talk about his portfolio. You know, the 12 and change that I thought ought to be more. Jimbo gulps and says it's better that he finally found out. Henry feigns ignorance. Found out? What could I have possibly found out? Oh, you mean the money? The money that you stole from me. How long have we known each other, Jimbo? The friend says a long, long time. And do you think it's right to steal from people that you've known for a long, long time? Henry throws the financial reports down at Jimbo. That shiny new car of yours, I bought it for you, didn't I? Jimmy goes running to the locker room yelling for help, but the place is empty and dark. This is probably one of my another top 3 favorite moments in the movie. Jimmy calls out for Henry, and Henry steps out of the shadows right behind him.
Yeah, that's a cool scene.
Yeah, because the shadows are like pitch black dark, you know?
Right, yeah.
This startles Jimbo so bad he trips over a bench and breaks his ankle. Henry helps his friends to his feet, then slams him against the locker. He shows Jimmy the papers signed by him. Henry hits Jimmy, and the papers go flying, and so does Jimbo, back down to the ground. Henry pulls out his gun and aims it at his old friend and pulls back the hammer. Jimbo yells, "Fuck! Okay. It was 30-something grand over 2 years. That's it." By the way, Zach, I used an inflation calculator, and that's 55 grand today.
Wow. That's a lot of money.
I mean, that's the amount of money you kill somebody over.
Yeah, that's fair. I wouldn't mind having that.
Right? I mean, that's a lot of fucking money.
Yeah.
Jimbo says it was Janine's idea. She took all the rest. Jimbo pleads with Henry and says he'll give every penny he stole back to him. He tosses Henry his locker key and says he'll write him a check from the briefcase in his locker. It's cool because Henry catches the key sort of in the air without looking, and he goes, "Looks like you pissed yourself there, buddy. Must be the stress of high finance." Jimbo says, "You fucking prick. You're actually enjoying this, aren't you?" as Henry retrieves the briefcase. When he opens the locker, Jimbo can see what Henry looks like in the locker mirror. "Jesus, Henry, your face. You look," Henry says, "different." "Oh, I am, Jimbo. No more Mr. Nice Guy." Henry grabs the briefcase and kicks it over. It hits Jimbo in the now broken leg. Henry asks why his friend did it, and Jimmy said he fucked up. He's going to make it square. They'll be even. I love that. I like it when Henry gets angry, he punches the locker. He says, no, not nearly even, not nearly square. I like it when Jason Flemyng kind of raises his energy up.
Yeah, because the Jimmy's seems like he's trying to make amends with him now.
But Jimbo cries out that Henry was never supposed to notice. And then Henry sort of brings it back down, and again he goes, "You thought because you didn't notice me that I wouldn't notice you." Yes. So if you're going to go fucking shoot somebody, shoot yourself, Henry, not me. Henry says that he's going to take Jimbo's advice, the only decent investment advice he ever gave. If I ever get cheesed enough to shoot someone, the last person I'm going to shoot is me. At this point, Jimbo has his briefcase open. He quickly pulls out his gun and fires at Henry twice. Henry dives to the floor and shoots Jimbo in the chest. Henry's quote-unquote friend dies whimpering face down in the briefcase. And I gotta admit, Zach, I like that it's not an overly complicated death. He just shoots him in the chest.
Yeah. I mean, his leg's already busted, so he can't move a whole lot, but he's sitting and lying in his own urine.
If you want to see overcomplicated revenge deaths, go check out The Exterminator when he lowers the guy into the meat grinder.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
It is. And I'm glad that the movie doesn't go that route. You know, it feels, aside from the mask, it feels very realistic.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head. It's like a noir. It's a noir movie.
Yeah, I mean, nothing in this couldn't have taken place in the 30s or 40s as well. You know what I mean? This all could have taken place then.
I totally 100% agree. Except for the Misfit music.
Yeah, true that. It'd be like flapper music or something.
Yeah. Lights on the clatter.
Lights on the clatter. I know what you're trying to do, the Mr. Belvedere song. Streaks on the china, never mattered before. Go listen to our TV Obscura. We do a watch list with Diallo, part 1 and part 2, but part 1 was our live action theme song, favorites, basically.
And don't worry, everyone. We're going to do more theme songs. People are like, you should have picked this one. No, we're going to get to all of them.
Yeah, I know.
It's going to be 10 years down the road. Don't worry.
We'll get to them all eventually. I mean, there's a million of them.
Right.
Cut to the docks, and Jimbo's body is sitting in the driver's seat of his Mercedes while Henry pushes it into the water. The faceless killer says, "Best money I ever spent."
A little tagline.
Back at the motel, Henry applies more paint to his face while reciting a poem. The man had gone to a market to buy a diamond ring. The man who never noticed that he was not a king. He chose the brightest sparkle, a diamond made of glass. The setting bright and gold was crafted out of brass. The man spent all his money. The jeweler was a cheat. He told the man that royals wore diamonds on their feet. The man went proudly walking, inside his shoe the ring, and no one ever told him that he was not a king. Now, do you feel that fits with the theme of the film?
No.
Right? I liked it, but at the same time, so I guess it's just like he was cheated, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Like he's losing his mind, but he's not losing his mind. But he's losing his mind, but he's not losing his mind. It's a cool poem, though. Bodie used to call them poems. Poems.
I love that.
It's cool poems.
I love that. That's great.
And then when we would say it, he's like, "No, it's poem." I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
Well, hey man,
you're cool now. You're cool now,
bro. I can't say anything. I call TOUR. How would you pronounce TOUR?
Tour.
I pronounce it Tor, like TOR.
Yeah, well, you say woof instead of wolf.
Yeah, woof. Is that? I wonder if that's my Maryland accent or if that's just
Streaks
me.
on the China.
What did you say? Just throws out the windows.
I don't know.
Madness.
Cheeks on your fina. What?
Cut to the police station, and Tom from Bruiser is being questioned about the murder. He's not under arrest, so he's pretty pissed that they brought him down to the station. Later that night, we see Henry watching Tom leave the station via a police cruiser. At the same time, the daily newspaper is being delivered, and Henry, a.k.a. Faceless, is on the front page.
Or Whiteface.
Canceled. Good. Cut to Tom's
I mean, it is.
I know. It's what it is. He has a white face. I love how you didn't want to read the Peter Stormare line from earlier, the Bruiser, and you'll say that one.
Yep.
You're like, I'm not getting canceled. You're not goading me into getting canceled today.
Cam's like, this is why I pay you guys money.
That's why we make the big bucks, guys.
Baby!
Cut to Tom's house, and Henry is watching him sitting alone in the hot tub in his backyard. Or so we think, because model number 9's head pops up and says, "You're still not hard." And I have to say, as I'm breaking down the movie, this is the moment my mom walks into the room.
Corey, do you know the... Oh, my God.
I was like, fucking of course, right? Of course.
Streaks on the China, never met... Ah! Mom, those aren't streaks on your China. Ew.
Gross. Oh, God. Tom's just not feeling it right now. Number 9 complains, "You used to say I got you going more than anyone ever got you going." This dialogue is wild, man.
Yeah, it is.
Tom says she does. He had hopes. But I love how she's like sounding like years ago. It's like they've only been fucking for like 12 hours at this point.
Right,
They've only,
right.
You know? Tom says he does. He had hopes for them, but he's got to get out. She thinks out of the hot tub, but he means out of town. And then she gets excited. "Are you like wanted or something? Are you on the lam?" I'm just like, dude, the first time I'm watching this, I'm like, dame, lamb, getting cheesed. I'm like, what is this dialogue?
And then he goes, "I gotta get out of town, get out of town. North to Alaska, south to Rio."
Oh, I fucking love that song.
Me too.
I fucking love that movie.
Me too.
He says that he knows who killed the lady at the Bruiser office. Number 9 asks who it was, and Henry slowly pulls out his pistol. Tom says another ordinary guy. 9 asks if Tom sold him out to the cops, but he says no. "I told him I had no idea who he was. Not far from the truth. I barely know him. In the end, he might just turn out to be the best friend I ever had. That's sad."
Accurate, but sad.
Henry lowers his gun. Number 9 says, "You expect me to run away with you when I'm going to be on the cover of Bruiser?" Tom says he never asked her to come with him. He gets out of the hot tub, leaving 9 wet and upset, and Henry starts walking away. 9 hears Henry and stands up topless, telling him to get a good look. Tomorrow it'll cost you more than you could ever afford. It's like, wow.
Hashtag baller.
Hashtag Bruiser.
Yes.
Hashtag canceled. Back in the motel, Henry applies more paint to his face while listening to the radio talk show speculate about who Faceless is. And this is when I think he looks the coolest because he has like now just black paint over his eyes and it's kind of dripping. He almost looks what they wanted the new Crow to look like, but he looks so much better than the fucking new Crow with like the makeup and everything. My God.
My God. Why?
Please, for the love of God, anyone out there, don't make us break down the new Crow. Please make us break down the old Crow, the real Crow.
The old one, old Crow.
Oh, come on, old Crow. Cut to Rosemary walking through her house, and she's shocked by Henry standing inside the room. Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you. That's a lie. Actually, I did. She asks what he's doing. Henry says he's going away, but first he has accounts to settle. Rosie calls out for Milo, but Henry says he saw him drive away an hour ago. Rosie realizes that the accounts to settle are with her. She sees his face and says that's not one of her masks. Henry says, no, it's all me. I've been working on my image. He goes on, you know, for the world's greatest wuss, I'm becoming a pretty good second story guy. I got in the back window. Had to. There's a police car outside. I assume second story guy means second story window?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I guess.
I've never heard it referred to that, but okay.
Same.
Rosemary looks out the window and sees it. She goes for the front door, but Henry stops her. She says she's truly sorry about what happened. He says, you sound guilty. What have you got to feel guilty about? Because she knew about Milo and Janine. Henry sighs. We get so used to the lies and deceit that it makes you do things you don't want to do. I tried to tell you. Rosie says that when he came to her about it, she was sure he was talking about her. She couldn't imagine. Henry cuts her off and asks, imagine it was me? That it was Henry what's-his-name? The mouse dog crawling around in an unfinished house, trying to make it look like this? He motions around to the mansion. Who would want to live like this, except a glutton like Milo? He turns his attention back to Rosie and asks why she doesn't just get away from all this garbage. Rosemary says that she's trying. It's not that simple. In your head it's not, but out here where your feet touch the ground it is. As simple as murder? What's in your head, Henry? They both calm down and Rosie says she understands what he did, but she can't forgive it or forget it. She knows what it's like to feel betrayed. Henry says, what you don't understand is if you let them betray you, you betray yourself. It's what you'll be doing if you stay with that creep. Henry starts making a call on the phone and Rosie says, what else do I have? Look at me. What do you see? Henry tells the person on the line to hold. Then he tells Rosie that he sees someone of value, someone he values. The person on the other line picks up and we realize Henry's on the phone with the radio talk show. He says he knows who Faceless is. It's me, Henry Creedlow. I murdered my wife. Rosie tries to stop him. And there's another woman, Katie Saldano. That wasn't murder. Well, not premeditated. But I killed her anyways. I chucked her body off the 9th Street Pier. And my good friend Jimbo Larson. I'm sure Jimmy is happy to be referred to as Jimbo.
And my good friend Dipshit McGee.
Dipshit McGee. Fuck that guy. He's in the river. Same place. The police are also talking to a guy named Bertram. That's Tom, by the way.
Yeah.
He had nothing to do with any of this. He's a good guy. And there's another good guy, Rosemary Newley. She had nothing to do with any of this either. And she won't have anything to do with whatever happens later tonight. He hangs up the phone and says that he's cutting her loose and he leaves the house.
And she's like, you think I'm a guy because of my short hair, huh?
Seriously, bro. Seriously.
Not a fan.
It looks good on some people. I don't think it looks that great on her.
Nope.
Then that was a lot of dialogue, but I feel like it kind of, I don't really track as much dialogue later or as many chunks, but I feel like that was sort of wrapping up and sort of like, this is the end of the second act. So it's kind of like telling you exactly where he is and where she is and where all the, like the party members are going to be moving in to the third act.
Right, right.
Back at the motel, Henry wipes the paint off his face, and it's back to being just white with 2 scratches over his eyebrow. He takes one of Rosemary's blank masks and puts it on. Cut to Milo's big masquerade party in the meatpacking district. The costumed employees of Bruiser get out of the back of a box truck that they were transported in. They don't know where they are because that's part of the fun. They're greeted by Boyd Banks dressed in a Harlequin costume. Now, Zach, I know him from Dawn of the Dead, the remake. He was also a zombie in Land of the Dead, and he was also in Jason X. Did you recognize him when you saw him?
I didn't. You pointed him out to me, and then when I looked him up, I'm like, oh, yeah, that guy.
Yeah. You know what's funny? I've never actually known what his name was, but I've always recognized him as that guy.
Yeah. Now, and it makes sense that, but when I watched it after, I'm like, oh yeah, of course I know who that is now.
Yeah. And of course, he was in Land of the Dead, which George Romero directed. So, I'm sure they're friends and everything.
Buddies.
Yeah, they're buddies. And I love his costume, by the way. And his energy level is a lot of fun in this movie too.
Yeah, no, I agree. And this is a cool sequence.
Mm-hmm.
Has some cool moments in it.
Yeah. As Boyd is helping them out of the truck.
Boyd Aviation.
You've got Fletch on the mind today.
I always got Fletch on the
mind. A gang led by Peter Mensa, who was in Jason X and 300. He's the guy that gets kicked in at the beginning into the pit in 300. I met that guy. I met him in Santa Monica. I saw him and I went up to him. He was like just shopping on the promenade. He was in the promenade, one of the clothing stores. I walked up to him. I didn't know his name at the time, so I quickly looked on IMDb. Okay, I was like, excuse me, Mr. Mensa. Dude's like 7 feet tall. I mean, he's fucking huge. And I was like, hey man, I just want to tell you, I loved you in, and you could tell he's like, oh, his kid's going to say 300. I go, I love you in Jason X. And he was like, okay. He's like, alrighty. And he shook my hand, fucking huge ass hand. But I was like, dude, you rock. He's like, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Very nice dude.
That's awesome.
So Peter Mensa's character, he like kind of mugs them. Boyd gets stabbed in the stomach and sprays blood everywhere, but it's all an act. And he yells, let's party, as the Misfits start playing. Now, Zach, did you read why the Misfits are in this movie?
Yeah, apparently George Romero directed the video for Scream, the song that I believe is in this, and the only payment George wanted was for them to appear in Bruiser along with 2 original songs. I know people really are into this band and trip out over the songs, so God bless them, Again, the logo and everything is super badass for the Misfits.
Honestly, like I said earlier, I never heard of them before. I mean, I knew of them, but I never listened to any of their music. So this was, for me, kind of a nice way to actually know what they sound like.
Yeah, and this gives you a sense of who they are.
Yeah. They interview, I guess his name is Dr. Chud. I think he's the drummer.
Okay.
They interviewed him, for the Bruiser documentary. And he's, you tell he's just like, he loves George Romero. They love horror movies and stuff like that. He even wrote some of the score. He wanted to write the score for the movies. Like, I've always wanted to write music score. And he said he wrote some, he recorded it, and he was basically too scared to give it to George Romero. And he said he chickened out like multiple times. And then he finally left it in the George Romero's like glove compartment of his car, the cassette tape. So he doesn't know if he ever actually listened to it. And I was like, that's kind of sweet that, like, even though you're a big rock star, you were still kind of too shy and nervous to kind of like approach George Romero about it.
Yeah, well, it would have made the movie probably even better if that was the case.
So they play a little bit of it on the little documentary, and it kind of sounded a little Carpenter-esque. It kind of had that very...
That's cool.
Yeah.
Look, there's
I dug it.
The band Voyager 3. Y'all should check them out. Voyager 3 with a 3 for after the G, Voyager 3. They did the soundtrack for New York Ninja, and they just did the soundtrack for a movie called Killer Cabbage that just came out. And the soundtrack for Killer Cabbage is phenomenal. New York Ninja too, but man, check out the Killer Cabbage one by Voyager 3. They're great. And they're big time horror fans, and they have a show called the V3 Cast. It's on YouTube. Michigan guys, Detroit guys, really cool dudes, but yeah, I love when bands are into like want to do the soundtracks for movies. You know?
Yeah, me too. I think it's really fucking cool. One of the employees and his family talk about taking a cab home, but Peter Mensa asks them for their names. Mr. Stiles would like the name of all those who choose not to attend. So obviously Peter Mensa is a part of the staff there as well.
Right.
So they decide to stay because obviously it's clearly a job threat, you know. Out of the shadows walks Henry wearing a black suit, black cape and hat, and a fake blank white mask over his real blank white face. He looks very like Shadow-esque, you know, like the Shadow.
Yeah.
He walks up to two homeless guys who ask him for money, but he tells them it's Henry who hired you, Creedlow. They tell him that no one has spotted them as fakes. Henry helps number 9 out of the truck, and she says to him, I'm the new cover girl. Are you anyone I should know? He says, I don't think so. I voted for number 7. I was like, that's a good burn.
That's funny.
We see Rosemary pull up in her car, sans costume, and go running into the party. Detective McCleary and partner who gives a fuck pull up behind her and follow her in. As the detectives walk through the warehouse in the main area, we see people wearing S&M gear and pretending to be dead. On stage, the Misfits are rocking while go-go dancers do their thing, and the whole crowd is going wild. It looks like a pretty fucking awesome party, to be honest with you.
2000 party. Looks like a 2000 party.
It does. All it needs is blood coming out of the sprinkler system, and then everyone turns into vampires.
Right.
McCleary tells his partner to call for backup, but to keep it on the DL. No lights. They don't want to scare Creedlow off. We see Milo showing off his new ingenue. She's tall with long blonde hair, naked except for panties, and a huge blonde mustache. Milo says he loves the mustache. It's going to be a whole new thing.
It's hotter than silicone. Dames with mustaches.
He's going to make her the September cover, but number 9 hears this and gets upset. Milo is dressed up like the devil, by the way. I like his costume. It's really cool.
Yeah. Will later go on to play Satan in Constantine.
Great part of the movie, too. Henry walks by with his mask on and says to Milo, how's it hanging? Milo says,
who the fuck was that?
Henry stops when he sees the detectives with Rosemary. She asks what they are doing there, keeping an eye on things. Henry goes up to the control room where one raver kid named Chester is running the whole show. I love Chester, but I'll call out the scene that I love in a little bit, and I know you know what I'm talking about. Henry introduces himself as the guy he spoke to on the phone. Chester shows him all the lighting and sound equipment, including a laser that fires a beam twice as hot as the sun. Sure. It's the 2000s, man. It was a whole different time.
It'll kill people. It's okay.
Cut to Rosemary and the detectives walking through the party. They want to get her out of there. It isn't safe. She says that Henry could walk right past them and they wouldn't recognize him. She's the only one that's seen his painted face. Detective Who Gives a Fuck says they know what Creedlow looks like. They gotta protect Milo so nobody jumps his ass. In the crowd, we see bouncers taking random people over to harnesses where they are lifted into the air. As the detectives walk through the sea of people, Henry walks by and grabs Rosie by the arm, and the cops lose her in the crowd. Cut to Henry and Rosie running through a garage to a service elevator, with McCleary and his partner in pursuit. As Henry closes the elevator door, he says, "Don't shoot, you may wax the dame." And that's the dialogue right there. You may wax the dame. That it just clicked for me with his hat and everything. I was like, this is the Shadow. Romero wants to make some kind of this is like the Shadow.
Totally. I agree.
McCleary tells his partner to wait down here for backup while he goes up the stairs to try and catch Henry. Henry stops the elevator and tells Rosie the cops won't stop him. Not till he finalizes her divorce. Rosie says there are other ways to do it. Other ways to do what? You still live with the bastard. He probably still gets to fuck you in the shower whenever he's got the leftover energy. Am I wrong? She shoves him and says he's wrong. Rosemary pleads with him not to do this. The whole world knows who he is. I told them because I didn't want them to go on thinking it was you. Rosie says he didn't have to do that. He doesn't understand. She would have gotten away with it. With what? Henry asks. It doesn't matter now. Whatever they had is over. When he told her about the killings, she knew there was no chance of having him as a what? Friend? Soulmate? You want a companion? Get a fucking dog. As long as it's not a poodle. He hits the elevator and it starts going up again. Henry escorts Rosemary off the elevator onto an abandoned floor, and she begs him to leave with her. You're only saying that to save Milo's ass. Take advantage, Rosemary. Do what everyone else does and take advantage. Henry gets back on the elevator and goes down. I'm invisible. I've always been invisible. But I didn't quite understand what Rosemary was trying to say, that my plan would have worked. I guess it was just the taking the picture and divorcing him thing.
I think so. Yeah. But she's like stringing him along. So,
and it's probably still fucking Milo.
Yeah.
Oh my God, when I break up with my boyfriend, we'll totally get together.
Right.
Okay. That happens all the time.
Dude, so many times.
I'm going to break up with him. He's such a jerk. And you're so nice, and he's not. And I just got to end things with him. And I will.
Nope. I will. When the time is right. He's got his big football playoff game next weekend, so I can't do it now,
Yeah,
and then
timing.
prom's coming up, so we gotta be prom king and queen, so and then we gotta go to college together, so.
As One Direction said, story of their life. Yes, I just quoted One Direction and mispronounced the lyric to that song.
And we're sort of canceled.
Yes.
Cut to McCleary on a different floor, just as empty as the one Rosemary was dropped off on. He slowly makes his way around with his gun drawn, then hears movement. McCleary radios his partner that he's got Henry cornered on the 3rd floor. All of a sudden, McCleary spots Henry moving through the exposed beams in the rafters and tells him to stop. Henry shoots at the detective, and McCleary returns fire. Henry yells, "Jesus, I could have hit you if I wanted to. Why are you shooting at me?" McCleary growls under his breath, "You son of a bitch." It's so perfect for Tom Atkins, lines like that.
Yeah, he chews up every scene.
Yeah, he does. Cut to the Misfits playing on stage while Henry asks one of the staff where Milo is. The guy motions to the portable bathrooms and Henry tells the guy to follow him. Cut to Henry waiting outside of the handicap stall while Milo fucks someone loudly inside. As his boss stumbles out, he's startled by Henry. Milo asks if he's trying to scare somebody, but Henry says he's just waiting for his turn. Milo says he always requests a handicapper because
nobody uses it. It's nice, it's clean, it's tidy, and there's plenty of room to salami around.
I love that term, salami around. Henry asks if Milo had a woman in there.
What do you think, that I had a shit of a lifetime?
Henry says to his boss, "I have to tell you, Milo, that in my opinion, you're just about the lowest thing that ever crawled. We all mean nothing to you." Milo takes that statement as well as you'd think.
That's right. You mean nothing to me. You know why? Because you're fucking nothing. An ant. A fucking ant. With no mind and small balls. That's what you are. And I'm a fucking anteater.
Dude, I fucking love your Peter Stormare. You know what? This makes me wish I transcribed more dialogue because you fucking rock, man.
And this makes me relieved that you didn't. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I know.
Kidding, no. Kidding.
Just then, 3 of Henry's men come out of the shadows and grab Milo. Henry says he's just fucking with him. It's all part of the show. A grand finale. Milo gleefully allows himself to be taken away. Just then, the blonde, mustachioed woman walks out of the handicapper and Henry tells her to beat it. Just beat it.
With your juicy ropes.
With your beet juice ropes.
With your beet juice ropes.
Back at the stage, we see people taking their turns being lowered down on a harness. One of these people is actually a dummy dressed as a gimp. A laser shoots from the control room and takes the dummy's head off, and red confetti goes everywhere. The crowd cheers. Chester laughs from behind the controls of the laser. Just then, Henry hits him in the back of the head with his fists, knocking the stoner down. Henry's about to do his thing when Chester pops back up. What the fuck was that? Henry hits him again in the back of the head. Again, Chester pops back up. This time he takes a hit of something, like he kind of snorts it. And before Henry can hit him again, he just falls face down. This was hands down my favorite moment in the entire movie.
Yeah, I agree. It's hilarious.
And it's like, it's actually good humor for a movie that doesn't have much humor, but it does have some. This was legitimately fucking funny.
I know. I wish they'd play that more up in this, but yeah, that was great.
Henry takes off his mask and looks out over the crowd as Milo is lowered down on a harness while yelling,
"I can fly!"
Everyone cheers and Milo eats it up. Just then a laser shoots him right in the crotch. Milo starts yelling for help, but the crowd thinks it's part of the show. Henry aims the laser at Milo's head and Henry says, "We make heat," before pulling the trigger. The laser beam blows a quarter-sized hole straight through Milo's head and the crowd cheers as he dies. It was a pretty cool kill.
Yeah, it's very satisfying.
Yeah, because it's not like he dies instantly. He's like, "Rah!" and then he dies.
Right, yeah.
It's the kind of kill you want, you know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. As the final kill of the movie.
Yeah. Henry leaves the control room and puts his mask, hat, and cape on a chair. His gun, too, by the way. He hides his face as Detective Who Gives a Fuck walks by, and when Henry looks back, his face is back to normal. He still has the 2 scratches above his eyebrow. When he leaves the room, Rosemary picks up his disguise. Henry walks up to a coworker at the bar, and they say hi to him by name. This causes McCleary to look around. Henry asks if she can see his face, and she says, yes. He's like, "My face is back?" And I like how she goes, "Did it go somewhere?"
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, and then he says, "Yeah, but I stood up for myself." Finally, McCleary gets a bead on Henry and yells freeze with his gun drawn. Just then, a shot rings out from the crowd. McCleary spins around to see Rosemary wearing Henry's hat, cape, and blank mask of her own. She says her mask is a total blank, like Henry's used to be. He yells out that he can't hear her. McCleary tells her to freeze, but Henry yells that he's the killer. McCleary spins around. Then Rosemary yells out that it was her all along, and McCleary spins back around. Then everyone in the crowd starts yelling, "It's me, it's me," like very Spartacus-esque.
Yeah.
Just then,
but more drug-induced at a rave.
Yeah. Just then, 2 bouncers grab McCleary, allowing the 2 to escape. Cut to Rosemary leaving the building without her mask. She walks up to McCleary and says that Henry is gone. The detective says he's somewhere and he's going to find him. He asks why Rosemary did it. She says, "Did what?" He says, "Lady, I've been skunked here tonight and I got to answer for it. So come on, help me out here." She says that she has absolutely no idea what he's talking about and hands the detective the mask and the gun, then walks away. McCleary says, "If you catch up with him before I do, give me a call." Rosemary says, "Okay." Now we have the denouement.
Would have been funny if he suddenly grabbed her and then handcuffed her and threw her in the back of the squad car.
Right, because you're going to bring her in for questioning, man. She had the gun in her hand.
Yep.
But he's a terrible cop.
Yep. Exactly.
Some time has passed, obviously, because Henry has long hair, but cut to Henry working as a mail clerk in an office. He has long hair and is wearing a tie-dye shirt. He seems friendly with everyone except the asshole boss who's currently chewing out a few of his employees. When the boss catches Henry looking, he says, "What are you staring at?" "Nothing, sir. Nothing." Henry starts pushing the mail cart away, and the boss runs out of the office yelling, "I'm not done with you, asshole. Get back here." Henry says, "Coming, sir." And when he turns around, his face is white again. Cut to credits and a cover of Take On Me by Holstan Skinder plays. I actually kind of dug this version of Take On Me.
I liked it too, and I really love the ending to this movie.
Right? It's really cool. It's like,
yeah,
it's like he's almost like we said, a superhero / anti-hero, or maybe he can now, his face just comes out whenever he needs to become faceless.
Yeah, totally. You could throw this movie up there with, like I said, Office Space, Swimming with Sharks. You could do that one. You remember that movie?
I remember that. Yep.
And then Secret Life of Walter Mitty is the happy version of this. But yeah, I love the ending. I love the third act, probably the most out of all 3 acts.
Yeah, me too. It's the most fun.
It's the most fun and most colorful and kind of speeds up. I think you could easily trim 9 minutes off this and make it a cool 90-minute movie.
Oh, for sure.
Cutting out just some of the extra stuff that you didn't need. But look, it's really fun to revisit this one. So Cam, thank you for bringing us back down this road of a movie that's now 24 years old, which is boggling of my mind to even think about that we're 25th anniversary next year. Crazy. So it's cool to watch Bruiser again. I think if you've never seen this movie, you're going to enjoy it as a first time watch. And if you have seen it, you probably did enjoy it, and rewatching it 20 some years later, you'll probably find more to enjoy out of it than you did maybe the first time.
Yeah, I think it holds up well in 2024. I think I think it's like a sort of a timeless concept about, the guy that's being pushed down, sort of rises up sort of thing.
Right.
But yeah, thanks, Cam. Like I really enjoyed this movie. I didn't think it was perfect. I thought some of the dialogue was just a little bit, maybe needed to be baked a little bit longer, But overall, I felt like it was a very unique film. Just the concept of it and its execution. I'm with you, Zach. I think the third act is probably the most fun, but that's great. Like better to have the third act be the most fun than the second act, and then have the third act be a snooze fest, So it ends, you walk away from this movie being very excited about it, and we are a cult movie podcast, and this is one of, I dare say, George Romero's lesser known films, maybe not the most lesser known, but one of them, and truly a cult movie. I don't really hear a lot of people talking about this and everything. So hopefully maybe we kind of, boost the signal and encourage some dialogue, but, leave us a comment on the Instas, leave us a comment on Patreon, just let us know what you thought of Bruiser and where it sort of ranks for you in George Romero's filmography and everything.
Yeah, this month we are covering 2 movies from the 2000 era. So, it's interesting to see what was popular at that time, early 2000s. So this one's 2000. Identity, which will be the next one I will be breaking down, is 2003.
Yeah.
So, it's cool to visit a time when, I don't know, we don't necessarily talk about these movies all that much.
Yeah, and it's also cool. Like they're both sort of thriller-esque, and it's fun to be doing that for Halloween. But it's nice because Paulette and Cam, I don't think they got together and discussed it, but they kind of fit as 2 movies back to back, and they kind of we sort of built the theme of our month around these 2 movies. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And this one had a costume contest in it, or a costume party, so it is Halloweenish.
Yeah, no, it's very cool. It's very cool. I'm so glad I saw it. I'm so glad I own it. I have that new 4K. I forgot the company that put it out. Indicate or something like that.
Yeah. They put out the Ghost of Mars one a few years ago.
Okay, and sometimes at glance, I sometimes think
Indicator.
they're Arrow because they have the bottom of their covers have those colors, sort of like how Arrow does.
Yeah, I like that.
Me too. Cool. I think they and I think this might be the first one of their stuff that I own, and it's a beautiful 4K. So guys and gals, grab it if you get a chance. And if you get a chance, swing on by our website. We've mentioned before Patreon and our merch store and everything, but you can find everything at podcastingafterdark.com. That's podcastingafterdark.com. Links to all our social media, links to our podcatchers, links to our Patreon, and do us a favor, guys and gals. We kind of haven't been asking for this for a while, but leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you get a chance. They really do help boost the signal on those podcatchers for us. And it seems like it's been sort of a while since we've had like a written one and everything on Apple Podcasts. So if you haven't left us one, it'd be a pretty awesome solid to leave us some newer 5-star reviews and everything. And the same goes to $2 late fee, and any other podcast you listen to. If you can't afford, Patreon and or buying a shirt or something to help out any podcast that you love by leaving them a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It really does help. It really, really does. Algorithms, guys and gals, algorithms.
Be a dame and not a cheesehead.
There you go. And speaking of $2 late fee, Zach, what do you guys got going on for October for Spooky Month?
So we this month's movie we're covering is The First Power with Lou Diamond Phillips, and our guest this month, Jeff Kober. Jeff Kober is great. You're going to love that interview if it hasn't dropped already, which it might have at this point. But yeah, Jeff Kober, First Power. We're rounding out the month with a Tales from the Video Store that will go to the patrons first, but then we'll come to the free feed because we've got a guest, Tim Sullivan, who directed 2001 Maniacs, Driftwood with Diamond Dallas Page. He's a horror aficionado, so he's going to be joining us for Tales from the Video Store. And then, of course, Territory Marks and 80s Kids Unite.
Woo! Oh, it's always good stuff, man.
A lot of stuff.
And obviously, if you've been listening to our show, but you don't switch over to $2 late fee, although I know it's like 99%. But you got a taste of it with our whole month of Predator last month, and you sort of got a taste of everything. I was on Territory Marks. That was so much fun. 80s Kids Unite is always on, both feeds and everything. So it's a lot of fun. We're having a good time, and we hope you all are too. And as always,
we'll catch you on the dark side with a salami and a little bit of a... Be sure to subscribe to Podcasting After Dark and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. Support Podcasting After Dark on Patreon. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Podcasting After Dark. And visit us next time for another installment of Podcasting After Dark with Corey Stevenson and Zach Schaefer.
I'm John, and I'm the host of Action Action. Every week, I'm joined by James.
Heyo.
And Dustin.
Hello.
And each week, we review, debate, and rank a different action movie.
We're creating the ultimate list of action movies.
From awful to awesome.
So if you want to hear 3 more white guys with beards talk about action movies.
And argue about where they belong on our list.
And decide you hate us because we made fun of your favorite movie.
Join us every Tuesday, and you can find us on your favorite podcatcher.
And Steven Seagal is a joke.